right? So like when we look at access to some of these classes, that sort of thing, we have been providing supports through IEPs, through financial assistance. Like we have all those set up to try to make our system as equitable as possible. So that was and has been a part of the conversation, but I believe our system has as best as we can equitable access.
So it's reasonable to assume that a student would not be penalized because they didn't have the financial ability to take or dual enrollment or have the support system set up so that they can be receiving academic support to be successful in that class?
Correct.
Based on what we
have in place. And yeah, like we look at, like Greg Benz, when we look at dual credit and getting bends over backwards to try to come up with those resolutions, we have a lot of, if a student isn't able to travel like to some Madison, we have a lot of in-house dual credit options. Okay. And we're looking to expand those as well. So
okay, I appreciate that. I want to make sure that was considered.
Absolutely. Again, this isn't something that we're coming like and I think you understand. I woke up and we're like, we need to have a tiebreaker, right? This is something necessary at the moment, and this is what the team feels is the best criteria, and is, to your point, as objective as possible and not subjective.
Thank you, Eric. Other questions? Yes, Elsa.
I guess from a student perspective, like what would be your recommendation for students looking for more information about this and looking to take this criteria and look at determining their own futures, especially those in 9th and 10th grade, looking at picking their schedules? I know we've already picked out our schedules for next year, so would edits be able to be made, stuff like that? Yeah,
so if this would pass this evening, we would apply for the waiver and get the waiver granted, which based on our process, I feel like we would get the waiver granted. We're following the process. We've consulted with Department of Public Instruction policy analyst in the process. So we would then thinking about future years, this would be in the course handbook. This would be a part of the counseling process. This would be part of the registration. This freshman orientation, right? All those sorts of things. This would be a part of it. If students receiving this criteria as current sophomores, because while the schedule isn't done, we have registered, would look to make changes. We make changes with student schedules all the time. So my suggestion to them, if listening, would be if this passes, meeting with the counselor, and if it changes any current plans that you might have.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great question, Elsa. Other questions? I have one actually, and I'm glad that you said something, Elsa, because I was curious. I know that we did a survey with families. Mm-hmm. Did we do any surveys or focus groups with youth around this criteria?
We did not do anything explicit. We looked with that counseling team that is working with not only admissions but students on their scheduling process and try to bring their voice in through there, and then also through that family survey, inviting families to have conversations with their children. But we didn't do like an explicit act there. Yeah.
My second question is, I think the assumption is that we're either going to get some legislative or administrative guidance change on this, or UW is going to change their policy in a way that makes so we don't have to do this as much. But what is our continuous improvement in lieu of that? What is our continuous improvement around whether or not this is the right approach?
Yeah, I think we'll look at it every year, and we will start to also what we have been tracking as students go every semester, like where are we at in this process, number of students, et cetera. But then looking at if we have to apply the tiebreaker, like how many students is that impacting, and to which level of criteria did we have to get through, and then come back and inform Teaching, Learning, and Equity Committee on that. And of course, notifying Teaching, Learning, and Equity Committee, making that anytime that we have to apply that, bringing that information forward. That wouldn't be a secretive. Obviously, we wouldn't use student names, but we would share that we've deployed or employed the tiebreaker. Either one.
I think you can do both, actually, in that context. Other questions? I have one more. And I recognize that kind of second tiebreaker criteria is really the third tiebreaker down, right? It applies that you've had ties twice. Are you concerned at all, Rob, just from your seat in the Curriculum and Instruction House, around sending messages to students around loading their schedules in ways that may foster more pressure, more intensity, right? So that if you have your eye on this third tiebreaker, and the probability of that may not be very high, but if I'm a student, it's like I'm watching it.
Yeah.
And so I guess my question is, what are your thoughts on that in general? And then how are we managing, balancing out, yes, we want high rigor and high relevance, and we also don't want youth that are burnt out, and we want youth to be able to enjoy their high school years and those kinds of things. So how are we thinking about that?
I think context, we haven't, right, this last year's class, most likely this year's class, like, we wouldn't even have to deploy any of it. So just kind of for context, that's one of the reasons why it would be lower on there. I also think that having that third criteria, what the effort for that isn't to say, like, load up and take a full load, but if students are, as a junior, taking 2 study halls, right, for whatever reason, it's to try to say, well, your GPA is kind of being calculated on less of less content and context. So I think that's work that our counselors and student services has to, continue to work with kids on. And yes, families will have to make some decisions based on this, but just again, for context, historically, last couple of years, I mean, we might be talking about 1, 2, or 3 students here. We're not talking about disqualifying 10 students because they didn't take that extra class as a sophomore.
Yeah, that's fair. Thank you. Go ahead, Janice.
And I guess I have the concern from the total number of AP classes.
Yeah.
Like my concern is that students try to take like too many AP classes, which then leads to the burnout that you were talking about. So like, just, work-life balance or school life balance, like, is also still important while having rigor. Like, rigor is important too, but like, I'm concerned about students, like, trying to do too many things and not sleeping ever.
I hear you, and I think one of the things that we have, with our, particularly for freshmen to juniors, I think that's more of a concern, particularly when we include seniors, and maybe a little bit that junior year, right? But based on the number of mandatory classes that we have for students, and the number of opportunities for AP and like freshmen and sophomore are more limited, that it's not as though freshmen are going to be coming in and loading up and trying to take every elective as an AP, if that makes sense. So I hear you, and again, not a perfect world. So that's really where we have to still rely on those counseling appointments and have people making the right decisions, and knowing that, whether there's guaranteed admission or not, this is still like every child still needs to create the right path for them. And I can't guarantee it, so I'm not going to say that, but there's not that big of a difference between a student in the 6th percentile and 5th percentile. And so likely through the holistic process, I mean, it's not because they don't get that 5% designation that they're not going to get into one of those universities or 10%. So that's important to consider as well.
Thank you, Rob. Philip, and then Eric.
Did you mention that this program is new in 2023?
It was enacted in 2023. Yeah.
Okay. Do we have it's obviously new then. Do we have a sense for the impact of it? Like how many more students are getting into the state schools that maybe wouldn't have otherwise, or?
We don't have that data because UW is treating students in the holistic process, right? And the universities aren't necessarily keeping track of who would or wouldn't have gotten in. Like, we just don't have that data.
Gotcha.
I don't have anything more that I can share beyond guessing.
I will say anecdotally, and this is sort of ends of 3, right? But I have talked with families that have experienced this process, like on the family receiving side, and it's taken a lot of pressure off of kids and families to know, like, I'm in this place and I know where I'm going, and now I have this senior year that feels very much open and free. So I have heard that from families. Eric.
Going back to the credits, the one, and this was raised in some of the comments, the one, I guess, concern I have still is if we're looking at, in particular, advanced placement credits as a criteria for number 2, I would think that would really affect some students' decisions in the arts, like music and art classes. They would be, they'd be making a decision, well, do I take orchestra? Do I take music? Do I take art? Or do I have to take a dual credit because this is going to affect my chance of, qualifying? So what's the information that's been, that you have about that, and what you've thought out about that?
Yeah, I think that can be a concern, and I'm going to probably sound like an echo, but again, it's having our counselors really work with our students to make the best decisions for them. That could be a concern, right? Where I am not going to take this elective that I really want, whether it be in the arts or somewhere else. And I would also say, for example, for like graphic arts, we offer AP classes in those areas. So like it's not exclusive of that.
But there's no AP classes for music and art, though. Am I right?
In art, there is.
Graphic art has an
Okay, graphic art. What about the other arts?
Yeah.
The important ones. The abstract ones. The ones that make you think. And
Yeah.
Hey, no, I'm serious. These are, this is part of, our civilization.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I think it's important.
Well, and a couple of thoughts with the GPA, since we don't weight the grades so it's kind of like if a student has a 4.0 and they take all AP classes when they are able, or if they don't, they still that GPA is going to be the same if you have general courses with A's versus AP with A's or A's. So just a thought, because it's kind of like that would only be deployed if there was a tie. The other thing is, we talked about this in TLE, is if we don't have a plan, then we don't really get to be isn't the other side, if we don't move forward with approving this, then the other option is we really don't get to participate, right?
It's potential. That's
Yeah.
the discussion, is that if we are sending more than 5% of our students, then they're all going to go through the holistic process because we are not meeting the letter of the law. Now, we haven't been forced to that position yet, and that's what we're trying to prevent. I think the other option to what Janice and Eric were sharing is, and it has been a part of the conversation, and a conversation with some families that I've shared too, right? And why AP is in there, like, you're absolutely correct, and so we need to make sure that we have some high quality offerings for students. And then what we also don't want, we wanted to put some reward in there, because right now we do have families that are saying, don't take the AP class, protect the GPA. Right, so it works both ways. So our goal is that GPA and criteria number 1 takes care of the issue, but then having to make some, relatively tough decisions after that. I'm not going to not acknowledge that.
Yeah, Susan.
Again, I think my question, and actually having watched this happen, you have a student that takes no AP at all and has as high a grade point as you can have.
Mm-hmm.
You have a student that takes a significant amount of AP, and their grade point is lower. How does that balance?
Right now we do not have
It's
a...
still grade point.
It's still grade point. Yep, we do not have a weighted system in Monona Grove currently.
Yes, and true experience is to watch that student get the scholarship to the UW and the other student not. The other thing is when they give the student awards, there was a student that had been taking math classes at the university since he was a sophomore. And they gave out an award from the high school for everybody, I think probably that got A's in math in the high school. He got a B in one of his college classes, so he didn't get the award. So how do you balance that?
I think that's why, to the point of, that's why the teams wanted to bring in like in the tie-breaking criteria, those giving credit for those advanced classes. And we do not have a weighted system or a Laude system currently, so that would be a separate conversation from the waiver. So yeah, again, criteria number 2 is to try to provide some credit for that. I should just provide a little context. Getting in the top 5 or 10% doesn't guarantee, while it's a Wisconsin guarantee, you still have to meet the admissions
Admission
requirements of the university as far as what those, if it's 4 years of math, if it's whatever those requirements are. So students would still be guided to, you know, where do you want to go, what are you looking at, and like, then what's the best way to fulfill those requirements?
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Susan. Yes, Eric.
I just have a comment, and this is to the students of the district and to all students. As an alumni of the University of Wisconsin-Madison, I would say that it is, it's not the end-all most important thing. If you're an artist or a musician and you're passionate about that, and as an artist and musician myself for my whole life, I think that that will be more important in the long term for you to hold on to that passion and pursue that. If you think you're juggling or questioning, you know, dropping that, there are a lot of other great colleges to go to, just as good as the University of Wisconsin-Madison. So I just hope the students, you know, don't overestimate this criteria because it's not perfect. So follow your passion, follow your dreams. Don't go by this.
And I would just reiterate the chances of it being deployed, right? Like to do your whole plan for the chance that it might have to be deployed. Like let's keep it in context for what we're really talking about.
Yeah, Elsa.
I guess I just wanted to circle back to one of Eric's earlier economic concerns about the burden on families. Right now, there is a program where students can take some of the required courses online over the summer through these different programs, but that has to be paid for out of family pocket and out of family money. This would give some students the opportunity to advance further in these advanced placements classes or these dual credit classes over students who may not have the economic funds to be able to provide that for themselves. How would that be factored into this equation going forward?
Yeah, I think that's a great question that we would have to explore. I'm not completely familiar, to be honest, in my first 6 months here of the number of students that we have in taking advantage of any of that.
So students can take Start College Now classes or early college credit classes. So you'll see on one of the consent agenda tonight is students who have applied to take those and get college credit for them. And so it doesn't have to be through their family. That's a personal choice. There's other avenues that we do have quite a few kids take advantage of.
And that is we pay the bill for
we
that.
pay for
And
that.
get funding
Okay,
for that.
the ones that I have personally experienced, in my experience, those have to be paid for out of family pocket.
So
there are
to that point, we do have other
Yes,
options. And
there are other options, okay.
And we are continuing to look at expanding our 4-credit options in high school, summer school for students as well.
I think this question's a really good one, Elsa, and I think good feedback around how we make sure that we're continuously closing communication loops with youth, right? Because if you're sitting on our board as a student rep, like you are, you tick many high achieving boxes, Elsa, right? And so if these are opportunities that you don't know about, then odds are that some of your fellow peers don't know about them as well. So just kind of making sure that we're always closing that loop, which is why we're glad we have you, but also I think important for administration to keep in mind as well.
Yeah, and then just like, again, going back to that, like this may come as like a shock to some students and they may see this and freak out and start changing their schedules. I just want to ensure that those students can have a calmness and a security in that process and to have those resources going forward as we enact this for the approval of the waiver, so.
Again, I would agree. We want to make it clear what the criteria is, but again, we don't want to overplay. Yeah. Like I said, as of now, we haven't had to use any criteria, and if we were to enact this year, which we're not, right, for juniors, it's looking like we wouldn't have to. And now I can't control grades for second semester, so I can't promise. But you know, it's not. This is looking for our system to be the rarity that we would even have to go through this process. So context is important.
Yes. Any other questions for Rob or about this at all? Thank you, Rob, for the great presentation.
Thanks for the great questions.
Yeah, and for answering all of our questions. I would entertain a motion to approve the resolution that would request a waiver from DPI under Wisconsin Statute 11838 that would allow the Monona Grove High School to determine the top 5% and top 10% guaranteed admission program as established. What? Oh, that's right. We're in discussion. Thank you. Never mind. We get to vote.
It sounded great, though.
I know. I was like really excited to write all that. I was really excited to write all that one off, Rob. Normally we discuss before we motion, but I think because the attorney's here, we're doing it the right way this time. All right. Are we comfortable voice voting this one? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you again, Rob.
I appreciate your time and consideration. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. All right, next agenda item is order of business. Other than the changes that we made in regards to closed session items, any other change to the order of business for today? Great. So the next item up is an administrative report. This is a new item for this evening. And I had asked the administration, we had this item on the agenda in discussion item later, but given the importance of this topic to our community, I wanted to make sure that it was pulled up in its own kind of agenda item and it's right. And before we start, I kind of want to set some context and then we'll let you, Tanya and Kristen, talk a little bit. And so we've been getting a lot of feedback about kind of what our strategic priorities are, what we're looking at in terms of, properties and how we're utilizing them and those pieces from the community. I want to say thank you. I say this many, many times to anyone who emails. We heard it last year too, and we got a lot of public comment. I think feedback and engagement with the board is incredibly important. I love seeing people here in person, even though it may not be the most exciting moment in government, right, to walk through all these things, but I love to see it. And so I want to remind folks, because I know that there is a lot happening and people are saying a lot of things. I want to remind folks that we are truly in fact gathering right now. And the reason we are is because we have really important strategic priorities that we're balancing, right? Financial pieces, which we're all more than well aware about, right? We don't have to belabor those. We have strategic objectives around ensuring that our academics continue to grow, as we saw in this last year's report card. We want to keep our foot on the gas there. We have made some promises to our staff that we're going to give competitive wages to them so that we can continue to recruit and retain high quality staff. And we want facilities that are healthy, safe, fun places for our kids to learn. And so balancing all those out as we move into our strategic planning process, which is going to be coming up here, it's important for us to make hard and important decisions, but we can't do that without information. And so part of what we're doing to evaluate properties is to gather that information. Now, based on feedback from the board, the administration has engaged with the broker to look at our entire portfolio. So that's not just Maywood and Nichols School and District Office. That's taking a look at the totality of our portfolio. We'll talk a little bit about that today. We also know that there may be a time in which the Monona community or our school district wants to have a new elementary in Monona, right? For whatever that reason may be, whether we talk about capacity, whether we talk about the fact that new buildings are just nice to have. And so what you'll also hear through our conversations with the administration is trying to think about in that future planning, what are those possibilities, what could they look like? So that as we're thinking about these determinations, right, as we're gathering these facts, we're able to go, okay, here's all of the possible pathways we can take. Let's think about that in regards to our strategic priorities, and then let's make those decisions. And I don't know that if you all have noticed, but we don't move very fast as a group. Like some of you were here last month, and we haven't really done anything from last month to this month. Some of that is sort of the way government works, particularly school boards. And so I've also asked administration to lay out the timeline for this first swath of things so that you'll have a sense of, and you also watching, but you people are here, so I'm looking at you. So you'll have a sense of when we should expect at the earliest to even get information, right? Which is going to require a lot of discussion before we even move to action on anything. So I know that the community has talked quite a bit around, slow down, not go so fast. And I want to assure folks that really this is a process that is moving, I think, at a pace that is commensurate with the severity of what it is that we're dealing with and the seriousness of it and the nature in which our school board works and operates. So with that being said, I'm going to pass to Tanya and Kristen so they can share with all of us what they've learned in regards to engaging with our broker and then what those opinions and timelines may be as we move forward.
Thank you, appreciate that. Have gotten many messages that our sound and our video stream for those watching is glitchy.
Of course it is.
It is something with the encoder. I'm gonna act like I know what that is. I have
It
no
sounded
idea.
really impressive though.
Do you like that?
Oh, that
I was
encoder.
It's the encoder. It's not the Wi-Fi, it's the encoder. So they will be working to figure out how we can capture the separate recording and get that uploaded if this is tricky for people to watch live. So Working on that. So just wanted to name that. The permission that we sought was to get a broker opinion of value. So, and that permission was given in December. And as Elizabeth said, as we looked into that, it made sense just to have them look at our whole portfolio in totality. So through a lot of snowball referring and asking everybody that we could find that is in commercial real estate, school district properties, those kind of things, we have landed on a collaboration with Inland Real Estate Company, and they do business as Colliers in Wisconsin. They have kind of carved out a little bit of a niche market in Wisconsin of looking at school districts' total portfolios. And as we talked about, a broker's disposition service is really thinking about what's the market position, what's the highest and best use, and then estimated disposition price. And so it just gives you a lot of different information for a board to consider. So we have met with those. There is no fee up front for this. If we were to decide to sell any property or anything like that, then that would be serviced under a separate contract. And then if we were ever to purchase any property that they found for us, that would be, that they identified, that would be with them. So our commitment is not very intense. They did laugh. They don't know. They're like, I don't know why we keep doing this for school districts, because districts ask for a lot of information and nothing ever happens. So we were like, well, thank you.
Because doing a public service is the right
That's what we
thing to do.
said. I'm like, it's a tricky market for people to want to get into. So like I said, it's not a formal appraiser. It really is, how's the district's assets compared to similar properties currently on the market or recently sold? What would be the most profitable efficient use of any land or buildings? And then what's a likely price point that they could expect if it was an asset that a district decided to investigate selling? So that's really what we're looking at asking them to do. So they are gonna start looking at the properties in order to start with kind of the ones that we originally started talking about, which was looking at Maywood and Nichols. They would start with those first, then move into Taylor Prairie, Cottage Grove School, Glacial Drumlin, Granite Ridge, and the high school. The other thing that we asked them to do is to do a point of time assessment of in the city of Monona proper, if you were to try to put together 17 to 20 acres because you wanted to hypothetically build a new school, what would that look like? What would the different opportunities be? Now, obviously, 10 years down the road, that could look really different. But I think it's a question we're all asking ourselves, because when you're in a community that has pretty densely populated with buildings, there's not like a lot of open land. So what would it look like to gather information about what that looks like? So we did ask them to look into that too, as a piece of information as part of this total package. So obviously, we expanded the scope of what we asked them to do. That is going to take a little longer. So they should be getting started soon. And they've asked for information. We've been giving that to them. And hopefully by the end of March or early April, they could have an initial presentation to bring to the board as an information item around those properties and what information they have to share with you. And so that is the timeline that we're looking at, to hopefully by the April board meeting to be able to bring those in. And again, just reiterating what Elizabeth said, the agreement just really covers the valuation, and it's not about a selling or acquiring. It's gathering information and then looking at. Then this board is going to have some deep conversation over however long it takes about what are their next steps, if there's any next steps to be taken with the information that is garnered.
Kristen, anything to add before I open it to the board for questions?
No.
Okay. Questions or comments? Philip?
I appreciate you expanding the scope to look at everything. I think it'll be great for multiple reasons to get a fresh inventory of everything that we have, and that'll be really helpful for our upcoming strategic plan.
Rochelle and then Eric.
Thank you for putting this together and reiterating where we're at for the community, because I know it's really important for them to be caught up to date with where we're at. And just as I'm looking through this, I know we have property here in Cottage Grove. Is that kind of, or do we have extra land? Is that also part of this evaluation?
Yeah, so this would be the property that encompasses each of the buildings. And so, for example, at Granite Ridge School, we have the property that the kids access, and then there's the solar field, and then behind that is another set of land. So it's all in that same composite, but the kids don't access it. So yes, they would be looking at that. Same with the school forest, all of that property there. We do have some fields at GDS where they play soccer and they use for the PE classes, so that is there also. There was a little confusion on one of the maps of at Taylor Prairie, the city owns, it's kind of like very similar to Winnequa, right, where it comes right up to our property, but where the city owns and where the school district owns, where that line is. And so that has been corrected in board docs.
Oh, great.
It's not as much land as it looks like, but the city owns it, and we have a partnership with them where the softball and baseball is played there for the high school, and then we do some upkeep for them and vice versa.
Great, thank
It's a
you.
nice partnership.
I've got one other second question. The reason that we're looking at in Monona, if we were to build a new school, the 17 to 20 acres is the requirement for new builds, or like, is there any limits as to, or size-wise?
Great question. There's some just, there's not really a student density per acre isn't really a measure. However, there's no standard. A general rule of thumb is around 10 acres as your base, and then 1 acre per 100 students past that. That would be for an elementary school. Middle school would be 20 acres base, 1 acre per from there. And then the high school, 30 acres, 1 acre. And so those are kind of general, but when you start to get into urban and suburban sites that don't meet those kind of land situations, different decisions can be made. Usually then that would impact a lot of logistical things around bus queuing, parking, playgrounds, footprint, some of those. So that's where I think when communities and boards have decisions to make about location over acreage. And so not a standard, but definitely just kind of a rule of thumb when they talk about it now. And that's in an ideal world, saying that all school districts had that kind of access to property, which is not always the case.
Eric?
Clarification for the project scope property sequence. Cottage Grove School, Glacial Drummond School, Granite Ridge School, Monona Grove High School, those are the properties associated with those schools and not the schools themselves, correct?
It's all of it. It's
All of it.
comprehensive. Yep.
So it's a comprehensive, how come Winnequa's not in there?
Oh, yeah.
Totally missed that. Sorry.
It's just a typo on the,
Okay,
It's
so
a typo. Yeah.
Winnequa should be included then.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
good catch, Eric.
Thank you.
And then,
7, 8.
so the comprehensive review, will that be separated by, for instance, the Granite Ridge School and then property of Granite Ridge School?
Yep.
Okay,
So they'll slice it and dice it. So when they talk about best use,
they'll
they'll
let
go
us know.
through and say to you, you could do this, you could do that, you could do this.
Okay.
So we've got some properties like at Nichols, right? There's that
Yeah,
lot to the
yeah,
back.
that's what I mean.
They might say slice that off and you could do that.
And then
Yes.
Winnequa should be included in
Yes,
there.
so we'll
Okay.
get that updated.
Good, thank you, good catch, Eric.
Sorry.
Other questions and comments? Yes, Janice?
Just so I understand the timeline, so in maybe April, we would be hearing about Maywood and Nichols?
They're gonna, in April, we'll have them come in and do as much as they've got done.
Okay,
March board meeting, there's just no way.
Okay.
That, just for the scale of it.
yeah.
So we thought, get started in March. Hopefully they could give an overview. Probably something that a board work session might be a really good idea after that to do because of the amount of information.
This is actually a good question for the board, and so, since the March board meeting is going to be too soon, sort of the closest, earliest time that we'll have is April. So I guess my question to you all is, what if it's only partially done? Do we want to have partial information in April, or would we rather wait until we have the total? I could see both sides. So what are thoughts there? Like, let's say they're not done in April. Would we want to wait until they were all done before we got information?
Not done as in if we have a completed property, or
Not done
have
as
a
in, like-
partial property?
Yeah, not done as in like they hadn't gotten to GED, Granite Ridge, it should be
But they've
GRS,
completed
not GDS.
full properties. I would be fine seeing partial information if it's this property package versus like, I've only gotten half of this property done. I don't want to see that
Right.
until they have all of that.
So let's say, just hypothetically, it was all of Maywood, all of Nichols, all of Winnequa, all of Taylor Prairie, and half of CGS. What we would expect then is that the presentation would be on everything except for CGS, because that wasn't completely done. Other thoughts or opinions on that?
I'm fine with doing it, as long as, like Stephanie was saying, as long as the properties themselves were completely done being evaluated.
Janice?
Yeah, agree with that. I don't want to like see part of like, well, we got partway through CGS, but like however much they've gotten done by then, I would like that.
Eric, do you have a point of view there? Okay. Susan, do you have a point of view?
I think it would be good to have everything. I appreciate the fact that you've expanded the list so that we can really get a full look at the district as we do a full evaluation. And I think as we get that information, if we bring it once we have it, I think that'll be helpful. But if you, again, if you only bring several forward, then it looks like you're focusing.
Philip?
I actually think the value potentially of seeing something in April would be an opportunity to give some feedback midstream to the broker in case there's information gaps or just things that we look at in the first couple properties that we would really like to see. It gives them an opportunity to revisit things. So that's really where I see the most value in sort of having a check-in in April.
Yeah, Rochelle.
I think the other, and I was thinking of this when you all were just talking about how also I'm assuming, because none of us are in real estate, it's going to be a lot of information, and the process of how they're giving us the information may take a minute to kind of sit with us. So if we have them come back around, we may have fresh questions, especially if community members are watching. They may have questions that they want us to take to the broker as well. So it would give us another opportunity to have a conversation with them.
Makes sense to me. Are you comfortable with that, Susan? Yeah. Okay, great. So what I'm hearing is, just for administration, board consensus around in April, whatever is done, so long as it's done in totality. So don't bring a partial building, and then we'll go from there. Any other questions or comments? Great. Just so the community is aware, similar to how we did Enrollment Watch last year, for those of you who are following Enrollment Watch, we added it to the part of the agenda that's called information items. Tish, can you scroll down on our agenda right now so I can show folks? It's not always the same letter, because information item letter changes based on what else we have on the agenda, but it'll stay in that information item block until such time as we're moving into what we call discussion, which is really when we start thinking about, let's have some discussion around some pre-decision making pieces. So information is literally just that, getting information to the board so that we can ask questions, provide feedback, those things. Once we're in a spot where we're going to be, thinking about potentially discussing to move in a direction, it'll move up to discussion. So Tish, if you could scroll up, that comes before information on the agenda. We only have one of those items today. And then when the board is taking action on it, you'll know, because it'll go as an action item. And so if it's not on the agenda as an action item, there's no action that we can take on it. So just school board process for folks that are following along. So like I said, if you were following along last year during our enrollment watch, you may remember that we had enrollment as an information item every single board meeting until we got to third Friday count, because that's when we had the right numbers. We'll treat this quite similarly, so we'll continue to have it on the agenda every month as an information item. Some months there may be no information. The administration will say we have no new updates. And then once you see it moving into discussion, that's when we're going to start thinking about, okay, now that we have this information, where might we want to go? And then action following that. Okay, anything else on this before we move on? Great, and thank you for the board and for the administration in allowing us a little bit of flexibility with our standard agenda today. Our meetings get quite long, especially today, because we had a long closed session and then we had the hearing. And as much as I love being here, I can appreciate the fact that other folks maybe want to get the good information and then head back out. So appreciate your flexibility there. All right, moving on to J, consent agenda.
I move approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Yes, no problem. Stephanie? Aye. Susan? Janice?
Aye.
Eric?
I'm going to abstain.
Rochelle?
Aye.
Philip?
Aye.
Elizabeth, aye. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Next up, Celebration of Excellence.
Yes, tonight we wanted to acknowledge that in December, we had a community member come forward and make an additional $5,000 donation that they wanted to use to clear food service debt for families that were in need. And so their goal was to create a ripple effect. And so in January of 2026, we got a second anonymous contribution of another $4,000. So in those 2 months, we got $9,000. At that point in time, we had about $17,000 worth of food service debt. And so that took care of a very large chunk of it. And so that really helps lift the financial burden of families that can really distract from some of those things. And so we're just really grateful of that opportunity that families came forward and did. Obviously, our district policy ensures that no child ever goes without being fed. We don't make them have a different meal or anything like that. But those debts can add up. And really wanting to continue to make sure that we are helping families, acknowledging when there might be a financial hardship or their circumstances have changed, so that they can qualify for free or reduced meals. But also sometimes there's other things that happen that don't really make you qualify, but you may have that debt that's there anyway. So just really grateful. And as we think about more people wanting to do that, it costs about $1,000 a year for a child to have in elementary to get breakfast and lunch every day. And it is about $100 covers 15 complete daily needs for a child. So breakfast and lunch. So just kind of helping people understand like how much, $100, how far that goes, or even $1,000. As people are thinking about, how do you give locally? How do you make sure it goes right to kids? And also thinking about not having that administrative overhead and stuff with some donations. So anybody that's interested in that, Katie Brinks-Kaiser works directly with Maggie, our food service director, to really make those connections. And what a great gift for them to be able to call families and say, we've been able to eliminate X amount of your debt based on this. So just wanted to share that, and just really grateful for those community connections and the people that made them.
Yeah, that's great. Yes, Susan.
I think another really critical piece is, and again, with Katie and administration and the board involved, is identification of the needs, and then how we try and meet those needs. And particularly because it's very difficult during this legislative time to be able to get funding. And one of the things that was a factor in the second donation was they read about the first donation in the Herald, and then were moved by that. So as we celebrate these kinds of things during our celebration time, it moves the word out into the community of donations and what you're doing with the donations. And I think that's impressive.
Yeah, very well said, Susan. Other thoughts? Okay, moving on. Elsa, time for your report.
All right, okay, so I guess we'll start off by saying that this week is PEP week at the high school. So Student Council is hosting the PEP week for all Monona Grove High School students. This includes dress-up days like PJ Day, School Spirit Day, and Pink Out for Ping. There is also a PEP rally this Friday, which will be celebrating the accomplishments of some MG clubs and sports that they have had this past winter. Now moving on to student organizations, I'm going to start off with MG Model UN. So MG Model UN traveled to its first international conference at the beginning of this month at the University of Toronto, in Toronto, Canada. The team enjoyed visiting the St. Lawrence Market, ice skating, a comedy show at Second City Comedy Club Toronto, and a world-famous dinner at the CN 360 Tower. On top of all of this amazing experiences internationally, MG MUN had 4 students place at this highly competitive conference, including 1 award for Best Position Paper, 1 award for Honorable Mention, and 2 awards for Outstanding Delegates. So the 2 students who received Outstanding Delegates within their respective committee also earned invitations to Harvard MUN Canada's Tournament of Champions this upcoming May. So that's very exciting.
I'm just going to interrupt you really quick, Elsa, and Lena knows because I did this to her all the time. So if the board's unaware, one of those outstanding delegates is our own Elsa.
Oh, thanks, guys. Yeah. So I guess I'll put a little personal comment in. Toronto was amazing. The University of Toronto is so lovely. The competition was just so fun. And I'm so excited to do Harvard MUN. So, yay!
Sorry, Elsa, I had to. I did it to Lena all the time up here, so it's not just you.
So then moving on to DECA. So MG DECA recently traveled to a Milwaukee Bucks game and even received a tour from someone from the marketing department there. This was a really great opportunity for members to see some skills that they use in their competitions in a real world setting and how they could apply that later in life. DECA has also been working tirelessly to prepare for their upcoming state competition, where they have been hosting study sessions for competing members. Moving on to show choirs, bands, and crew. This past weekend, MG Show Choir Band and Crew headed to De Pere, Wisconsin for a competition. The team put on a wonderful show with Silver Dimension taking Best Visuals and Grand Champs in the Mixed Voice Pep division. Silver Dimension won Best Vocals and Grand Champs in the Open division, and Show Band was also the highest scoring prep in the Open division. Then Forensics is preparing for their sub-districts next week, with the competition being held at MG this year. Then finally for arts, MG Musical. So MG just hosted their auditions for the Pit in the musical. So for those of you who don't know, most of the background sounds are played by actual high school students in the MG Pit, so they hosted those tryouts. They also hosted the auditions for the Young Turtles in the Under the Sea scene of the musical. This gives select elementary and middle school students the opportunity to participate in the High School Musical and that amazing performance. And then orchestra, last Wednesday, both concert and chamber orchestra performed at their winter concert. This event featured almost 100 high school students and was centered around the theme of vocal music through time. Then jazz band, MG and GDS jazz bands performed at their jazz dinner last Thursday. The event served as a fundraiser for the program, as well as a great performance opportunity for students. And then finally, MG Bands held their winter concert as well last Thursday. The performance centered around film music and also featured the 8th grade band from GDS, sort of giving them that breath and that taste of high school at the beginning of the year.
Awesome, thank you, Elsa. Questions for Elsa? Comments? Yes, Susan.
I just did, one of the other things I heard about at the high school that apparently was an incredible event was the 20th year anniversary of the basketball team going to state, is that right, 20th year? And they brought back as many of the students that had been on
fun.
the team and honored them in the gym. And again, for us to know about some of those events is really fun.
Yeah.
And apparently, the alumni loved it.
Awesome. Anything else for Elsa? Well, congratulations again, Elsa.
Thank you so
And we
much.
I'm
Appreciate
sure
it.
you'll be back here to get permission for your next trip,
Yes.
right? Well, we look forward to it.
So wait, question, when is the next trip? When is it?
So, my microphone isn't on. The Tournament of Champions would be in, I think it's late May. So that would be returning to Canada for that.
All right. Moving on to next time. We have a number of them today. As always, speakers have up to 5 minutes to speak on whatever they came to speak about today. I will call you in the order that you signed up, with the exception of we did receive a letter from a student, and so I am going to take meeting chair privilege and read that before our first speaker, because I think, per our discussion earlier, youth voice really matters. So this is from a student named, it's Clara, right? Not Clara? Okay, thanks. This is from a student named Clara Pepper. She said, "Dear school board, some of my friends and I are really upset that you're selling Maywood School. My mom, Chelsea Pepper, has been trying for the whole 2026 school year to keep it. What I mean by friends is almost everyone. And I don't like that you're selling Maywood School. And it would make everyone happy if you didn't sell Maywood School. Me and my friends go there a lot to play and have fun. Love, Clara Pepper." So thank you, Clara, for taking your time to write the school board. Please encourage your friends to do so as well. We love hearing from youth. All right, so moving on to the adult public comment section of the agenda. Our first public comment is Casey Erlinson. Welcome, Casey. If you can sit, that's fine, or use the podium, whichever you're comfortable with. Just make sure you hit the people button. It should be red when your microphone's on.
Yeah, this one was confirmed working, right? Yeah. Okay, cool. Good evening, everyone. I'm Casey Erlinson. I'm a Cottage Grove resident. I spoke at the January meeting to express my appreciation for the difficult work you're all doing to responsibly handle the debt problem facing the district. And I also listened to the many other district parents and residents speak up about the Maywood and the Nichols properties and how much they mean to them. I don't think anyone who heard those words can deny that there are deep roots and cherished memories at these schools, especially, of course, with Clara's letter here. I'm also running for village trustee in Cottage Grove this spring, so I've been out speaking with many of my neighbors about issues like fiscal responsibility and transparent government. Transparency in particular has felt like a difficult subject to nail down. It can mean very different things to different people, and I'm sure you all as board members trying to work with the public's trust have this ideal on your minds as well. In particular, I've been really pleased to see you go out of your way to announce like every single step of your decisions with the real estate appraisal, seeking approval for it. And I think at the end of the day, we all want what's best for our district and for our community. To that end, and Elizabeth, you undercut me a little bit here by changing around the meeting agenda this time. I was judging off of the last one, but regardless, I thought it might be helpful to talk about what the alternatives are, if any. I know this isn't really a back and forth dialogue, so it'd have to wait till the either relevant agenda item or maybe a future meeting. But if there's space for it, I think it could make this issue more clear. From my understanding, which I admit could be very incomplete here, the only other real solutions maybe are things like really significant budget cuts or something like a referendum, and maybe there's other things I'm not aware of, but I think that might help put things into perspective about why this is where we're at. As I said at the last meeting, this is a really difficult problem. There's no easy answers. I have friends in both Monona, in both the city of Monona and in Cottage Grove who have kids attending MG21, and it's an excellent school. I think the student presentation at the last meeting was a fantastic showcase of it. The MG Futures Initiative, the Rap Care at Maywood, those are both wonderful programs. But if this does come down to the kind of rock and hard place decision where the choice is between a place and the people that learn and teach there, I imagine that we would all agree we choose to save the people. So, thank you.
Thank you, Casey. Next up, William Wright. Hello, William. It doesn't matter, whatever you're, the button with the little person on it should turn red. There you go.
Is this working? Okay, cool. Hi, I'm Will Wright. I am a former student from MG21. I went there my entire middle school experience. I think that the location is really well, and I really hope that we do not sell it, especially since we have been updating it so much since I got there as a 6th grader. We revamped the entire upper campus bathrooms, and we made a bigger parking lot. We actually installed an entire playground. We didn't have that in 6th grade, so that's a really fun thing. We have a garden. We made an entire gazebo hut with our hands for the maple syrup that we make. Yeah, so that's like really important. And I don't think that we can do some of the things that we do anywhere else. We can walk to the Monona Public Library, which I don't think we have one in Cottage Grove. And I just think all the projects there are really important too, especially with the volunteer work. The projects that I did there, I don't think I could have done in other locations because they were just the field in the back. That's a really good place for everything, including playing, exercise. We have an entire garden system back there that we worked so hard to keep, intact. I remember we repotted all the soil, we planted the plants, and I just think it's a really special place. I also think that the interior of the school has just started to get really fitted to that place. I remember I went there, I visited a few weeks ago, and they have a glass stained hand placed murals on the windows that say MG21 walk your path, or murals on the wall made by the students. And I feel to sell that place and just get rid of all the hard work that has been put into that, and the finances that have been put into that, making it at that home. And then even if we keep MG21, which I'm assuming we're all going to keep the program, and we get to a different school building, I still feel like it would take a really long time to settle in. And I feel like it would be a really big waste to just say, oh, we put in a lot of work to this place and it was getting good, but we are just going to sell it, get something new, restart everything. That old stuff, I don't know how we could save some of it. Don't know what we could do with that. It's a really good community, and I don't know. I remember since it was so close to Winnequa, I could walk there after school, and I could volunteer there to help in the art room after I went to MG21. I still try and pop in sometimes, but I can't do it as often since I could now go to the public high school. Speaking of the public high school, I know that some people from MG21 take classes there, like AP classes, advanced math, or things that use the materials there. And if we went to a different school, that would be a much longer commute, and they would most likely be missing out on vital learning time and experience for them. If I'm getting too long, please let me know, because I have a habit of rambling on. And I just think it's this was more of a me thing, but I could walk there, and I know that some of the people don't have extra plans of getting home if we just moved buildings like that. And I'm running out of things to say, and I'm sorry about that. I don't want to get into all the stuff that I did there, because I could talk about that for a very long time. Yeah. But it's just a really amazing community, and I really hope we don't sell. I hope we don't have to sell any buildings. I can't speak for Maywood because I haven't gone there, but I can speak for Nicholas. Also, I know that Nicholas is a very history-heavy building. I remember that my dad said, "Oh, my friend went there and always asks about it," and I'm like, "That's nice." So I feel like to sell it would not only be a huge waste and just kind of how do I put that? I can't say that. But kind of just a slap in the face to the people of MG21 who finally, I feel like we were okay, we just got, wait, what? And I really just wanted to speak out and say, as a former student, I really hope that we can save this place and find some sort of solution. If I would have, I don't know if I can do this, but if you guys have any questions, I'd love to answer them if possible.
Yeah, we usually don't ask questions for public comment. It's usually a one-way thing, but I do appreciate you coming and sharing your experiences. Of course. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you for having me, and good night.
Good night. Thank you, Will. All right, next up, Joe Fowler. Welcome, Joe.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate the time. So I'm a Monona resident with 3 kiddos, 2 at Winnequa, 1 future owl. And I'm here, really just to ask the board, as we consider this process, and it sounds like some good steps tonight to, kind of publish, written alternatives analysis as we really consider, selling Maywood or Nichols in particular. The community should be able to see what options were considered, what assumptions were used, and why a sale is being recommended over other paths. At a minimum, I think the analysis should really answer 3 questions. Why not start with unused property? And I'm glad to hear the Collier's piece stepping in, looking at the district holistically, not just Maywood and Nichols, but the district owns vacant land and other parcels that are not currently being used for students. Before considering selling Maywood or Nichols, publishing fair market value ranges and explain in writing why selling unused land is not the better option. Second, kind of considering what other outside funding has been pursued, and publishing a summary of what grant options have been pursued, and what was awarded or what wasn't, and what other opportunities might exist before selling actively used school facilities. And then finally, what repairs to Maywood are truly urgent, and what is really the cost of selling. Show what repairs must happen now versus what can wait. And fully communicate the cost of sale, moving programs, renovating other spaces, and ongoing operating costs the district would incur as the result of selling the Maywood properties. Totally recognize that the situation is difficult and there's no perfect answers, but we're in a landlocked community, and seeing loss of public land, I think, is challenging to stomach without really considering all paths. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Wes Mosenblock, you are next. Yes, and just make sure the button is. Yep, there.
All right, thank you. My name is Wes, and I'm a Monona resident, 2 kids in the district. First, I want to say thank you for your time that you give to the district. These are thankless jobs, and you spend a lot of time on many evenings, and it's all because we're here and we have a shared commitment to our kids in the district, so thank you. It's in that context also that I know you consider hard decisions, right? And these are not, the decision around the property is not an easy one. I appreciate the presentation tonight, more context, and also broadening the process, more consideration. I think that's a really good step. It's really important to understand the timeline. But I think what I want to share tonight is some perspective around why it might actually be the right financial decision to not sell these properties. And I really have three points. First, these are forever decisions. These properties in Monona are community assets, and they're for the residents of Monona. The book value of these assets will never be as high as the value they provide to the community. And once you sell them, you're giving up the district's flexibility in Monona forever. And that's especially true if you sell them before you have a long-term plan. So what we've seen from the superintendent so far, it's a short-term financial analysis, and it's about risk avoidance related to the properties. It's not wrong to consider these issues, as we've heard already. These are important issues to consider. The data is really important. However, it's wrong. This is an irreversible decision, and it must be made in the context of a long-term strategic plan for the district, which brings me to my second point. The district right now does not have a plan that goes beyond 2027. The current strategic plan was developed during COVID, and it expires in about a year, a little less than that. So what's the plan for the district in the next 10 years? What's the plan to ensure we remain a destination school district? What is the process that the district is going to go through to engage our communities in developing this plan? Both the Monona and Cottage Grove communities deserve a chance to engage in a process to think strategically about the district's needs and priorities. This is the type of informed process that should occur before making forever decisions about our building and our land. Our long-term facilities plan should drive our strategic plan, which brings me to my third point. The actions you take, these next steps, I believe the district should prioritize the community buy-in and trust first and foremost. The operating budget outlook that we have is not healthy. We know that, and we know that's why these issues are on the table. I think the easiest thing to do right now is to come up with a quick fix, but I think that's very short-sighted. The sale of these properties will only buy the district a little bit of time before you need to come back to the communities and engage us for more and ask for more resources. The reality is in front of us. Sale or no sale, that process is going to come. And I think if you look at the financials, it's right in front of us. So I urge you to turn your attention to the future. Put the time and energy in to understand the needs of both communities, our shared community, but also Monona and Cottage Grove. You know, there's some uniqueness there, and we have to consider that. Develop the plan in the community buy-in process. Work to get the support you'll need to ensure we remain this destination district. It's going to require a lot more than just the proceeds from selling some properties. The long-term viability is the fiduciary responsibility of the board, of the school board, and I thank you for your service and your time and dedication.
Thank you, Wes. All right, next up, Chelsea Pepper, previously discussed in her daughter's letter. Come on up, Chelsea.
Thank you. My name is Chelsea Williams Pepper, and I'm here tonight as a lifelong Monona resident. My grandparents, George and Jeanette Williams, moved to Monona in the early 1960s. They raised their children here, and my dad, Pat Williams, chose to stay and raise his family here as well. Today, 2 of his children are raising families in Monona, and I'm one of them. That kind of continuity is rare, and it's part of what makes this community special. I grew up here. I attended Maywood from kindergarten through 2nd grade, Nichols from 3rd through 5th, and Winnequa for middle school. These schools didn't just educate me, they helped shape who I am, and they've done the same for generations of Monona families. When it came time to choose where to build my life, I looked elsewhere: Verona, Middleton, Fitchburg, even Cottage Grove. But none of them compared. None have what Monona has: walkability, closeness, the ability for kids to safely bike and walk to school, to the library, the pool, the parks, even the police station. That sense of connection isn't accidental, it's built around the schools. That's why I'm deeply concerned about the potential sale of Maywood and Nichols. These schools are not just buildings, they're a part of Monona's history, and just as importantly, they are part of Monona's present. They are actively used every day by hundreds of children and families. Nichols School's home to MG21, Maywood School's home to MG Futures and wraparound care that many Monona families depend on. These programs are not easily moved pieces on a chessboard. They are integral to Monona, and they rely on Monona-based resources and relationships. Students in these programs want to be here, they benefit from being here, and our community benefits from them being here. We keep hearing that selling the schools is a financial decision, but we are not fully accounting for what we lose if we do that. Can you imagine what Monona looks like if both of these schools are gone and turned into more apartments? More traffic, more people crowding the pool, the libraries, and the parks, more strain on already limited space without the infrastructure that made this community work in the first place. Monona is a small landlocked city. Once these schools are sold, that space is gone forever. There's no getting it back. And I want to be clear. We are not asking the board to ignore financial realities. We're asking for fairness, creativity, and alternative options to be seriously explored before irreversible decisions are made. We want MG21 to stay. We want MG Futures to stay. We want solutions that don't ask Monona families to give up the very things that made the city a place worth raising generations of families in. These schools are not just important because of what they were, they matter because of what they still are. They are living parts of the community. I urge the board to look beyond short-term fixes and to consider the long-term impact on Monona's identity, walkability, and sense of community. Once these schools are gone, the character of the city changes permanently. Thank you for your time and for listening.
Thank you. All right, next up we have Rachel Wally. Welcome.
Hello. I am Rachel Whaley, and I am a Monona resident. I have a child in second grade at Winnequa, and I've been a realtor for over 20 years, and specifically really working the east side of Monona. And I'm really concerned about, like, there's so much development in Monona, and then we're talking about closing a school, which is concerning. And I strongly believe we're going to need Maywood in the future due to the current capacity issues at Winnequa and the expected population growth, which I'll get to in a minute. And earlier you mentioned finding 10 to 17 acres in Monona, which you're going to find out that's really not a thing that you're going to find. And if we're going to build a new school, which maybe you mentioned, like if maybe someday we build a new Winnequa, I don't really understand how that financially makes sense when maybe we could just fix up Maywood and do pre-K through 1 there and then do Winnequa as like a 2 to 5 year olds, 2 to 5th grade, 2nd to 5th grade school. Like, I feel like we could use both in the future. And I say that because I've been working really hard to discover and like research data relating to the population growth in Monona specifically, with all the new inventory of apartments. There's a lot of commentary about how they're mostly 1-bedrooms or studios and like families aren't gonna live there, and like it's just simply not true. Since 2023, there have been 6 apartment buildings and then an additional 2 that are about to be approved with the city. With all of them combined, there's 8. And there are 600, that totals of 675 apartments. 32% of those are 2 or more bedrooms. Out of the 675 units, only 144 are studios, 165 are 2 bedrooms, and there are 37 3-bedroom apartments. It's a total of 913 bedrooms. Does not include the current 1 or 2 or Yahara Terrace, which is another 476 units, 608 bedrooms. Those were built a little later, in the past. It's just a lot of growth, and there are a lot of 2 bedrooms. So I started calling around to apartment management companies and asking who is occupying the properties. Unfortunately, they're very slow at getting back to me. But I did talk to the property manager at Bloom, and she said that most are families with children. And she's very confident based on the inquiries that when the turnover happens with apartments, that she is very confident that you're going to get young families with at least 1 to 2 children. She's like so confident. She gave me her card. She's like, let me know what you need. So I don't think closing an open enrollment at Winnequa isn't gonna, we're still gonna get more enrollment numbers with all these future apartments. Like, I just feel so confident with that. RPR is a data platform that realtors use, and they gather data from like the schools and other kinds of different background data that we have access to. And that data provides me that there are 400 toddlers in Monona in 2025. And I know that census data survey went out to the families. I would love to know the results of that. I don't know if we ever get to, but I would just really be curious. And I feel the growth in Monona. You're talking to people like, hey, what do you guys see? Do you want to, oh, wow, our street was no kids. And then, within 2 to 3 years, it's just like kids are just filling it up. So I have to believe that this data, the 400 with all the apartments being built and everybody just seeing the young kids moving in, that Winnequa is going to need to be built. I don't know how building a new school for Monona in the future makes any sense when we could use Maywood and Winnequa together combined. And the other thing I wanted to note is that I started to think about how Maywood and Nichols were donated or given or sold very cheaply historically. And I need to look into it more because I just done some basic research that I don't know that Nichols was donated, I believe. I don't know that we can just sell it, so we have to go back and look at the deed. I don't know if anybody's done any deed research, because I don't know that you can just sell it. I don't know what stipulations there are, so I'm hoping to have more information on that for the next meeting, because I think that is really important to look at. So I just feel like we should be able to come up with some creative solutions to retaining Maywood and Nichols while still providing excellent pay for our teachers. I mean, I think teachers should be paid more than doctors, but I don't know how to make that happen. But I do feel like collectively we should be able to come up with some solutions. So thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. All right, next up, Nicole Schoenbeck-Klaas.
Hi, I'm Nicole Schoenbeck-Klaas. I'm a parent in the Monona Grove School District, and I want to thank you all for the opportunity to speak tonight. And I really appreciate the expansion that we've seen in terms of the scope that we're looking at when we're talking about these properties. I'm here tonight to express my opposition to the potential sale of Maywood and Nichols as I understand it today, and I'm going to share with you what that understanding currently is. Around 2017, decisions were made that included a remodel to Winnequa School, which increases classroom capacity by repurposing existing spaces without corresponding increases in shared spaces such as the hallways, the gyms, the cafeterias, and other common areas. At that time, Winnequa had just exceeded 530 students. By comparison, when Maywood was closed and all of the students were consolidated for 4K through 5th grade at Winnequa, we only had 429 students. That happened in 2012. Today, we're talking about 615 students at Winnequa. Space challenges have grown without the building growing. These challenges need to be addressed before we talk about selling or deciding to sell district facilities. According to the district's most recent capacity report, and this is a direct quote from that report, there is a significant discrepancy between the gross square footage capacity and the other two measures of capacity at Winnequa. This could suggest that common spaces, circulation, and support spaces may be undersized, end quote. These shared spaces, safety, and functionality matters are all important when we're determining capacity, whether it's considering lunch and recess schedules, large and small group learning opportunities, hallway congestion, and/or emergency protocols. These constraints exist at Winnequa, and it's critical that we consider solutions that relieve that pressure rather than amplify it. I'm also deeply concerned when I hear about the suggestion of adding up to 104 more students to go up to 719. I know that that's maybe not a projected reality today, but we're saying it's possible, and we've already got tight spaces in this building. We need to have capacity planning that looks beyond just fitting students into classrooms and instead considers the whole building. That's why I asked that instead of selling Maywood, we consider how it could be used to relieve the pressure at Winnequa, whether that means serving certain grades, supporting creative partnerships with the community, or being leveraged as a land trade with the city of Monona to allow for expansion and improvements at Winnequa. These options should be fully evaluated before giving up this valuable district asset. It is also critical that we consider the future of programs housed at Maywood. MG Futures must be retained and would need to be thoughtfully rehomed. The 4K RAP program cannot fit into Winnequa like it does at Taylor Prairie. Similarly, our after-school program is an essential service that ideally the district does continue to provide adequate space for. An aftercare program large enough to support the Winnequa student body simply cannot be accommodated at Winnequa given the smaller gym and cafeteria spaces per student compared to Cottage Grove schools. I'd also like to address the cost figures briefly for Maywood. The district has referenced approximately $8.7 million in needed investment, but that includes non-essential upgrades such as LED lighting and air conditioning, among others. Excluding optional modernization, the required maintenance cost is around $6 million, with further reductions possible by decoupling some of these projects from each other. This cost matters when we're talking about this decision and needs to be considered. Switching subjects slightly, I also want to talk on Nichols School tonight. District projections estimate $2.44 million in maintenance and upgrades over the next decade, averaging $244,000 per year, or roughly 0.4% of our annual revenue. This means Nichols is the second lowest projected maintenance and costs of any school in our district over the next 10 years, with only our newest school, Granite Ridge, being a lower cost over that time period. Nichols is home to our public charter school, and those programs rely on resources available at its location, specific to Monona and to the high school. Retaining Nichols could preserve a low-cost, flexible facility that supports our current programs and maybe has the flexibility for future needs. Selling it for short-term financial gain would disrupt these programs and limit opportunities. I recognize the need to address today's budget and retain quality teachers and staff, but selling schools to address short-term pressures could create larger, more expensive pressures in the future. I ask that we continue moving in an engaging way with the community and fully evaluate all the alternatives to selling these schools before we proceed with any decisions there. Please consider the long-term needs of our students and the value of these facilities from an opportunity perspective. Thank you for your time, and thank you all for your service on the school board.
Thank you, Nicole. All right, Brad Schweiger, you are next.
Hello. My name is Brad Schweiger. My family and I moved to Monona about 12 years ago. We have 2 kids at Winnequa. Since then, we've been fortunate enough to call Monona home. We appreciate that we live in a vibrant community, and it's a very welcoming community. One of the draws of moving to Monona was we were planning to have children, and the school district was a major decision-making factor for us. However, over the course of the last few years, we've become concerned with the district and its finances, and I think many of us are. Budgeting is hard. And that concern has now extended and encompasses the proposed sale of Maywood. I want to speak today in opposition to the proposed sale. I understand that there's state funding has decreased, and there's need to cut the fat. Sometimes that is just the reality. However, I would suggest that Maywood is not surplus. Maywood serves an important purpose through contracted use of after-school care for many of Winnequa families. And as we've heard today, hosts the alternative school, M21. M21 relies on the Monona Library, and without M21, Maywood is a vital resource to M21. And it's a resource that I think that an alternative space in Cottage Grove can't sustain because it lacks a library and other resources. And the library is right there and walkable. These programs meet real, current, and vital needs to working families and students who require different learning environments. Selling facilities removes flexibility, and community actively relies on that flexibility, and it makes the community attractive to live in and draws people in to Monona and the district. I find it difficult to accept the claim that student growth will remain flat or decline. The city's actively building, as we've heard, family-oriented apartments, and that comes with families and children. At the same time, we can anticipate demographic shifts with young families increasingly looking to move to cities and places like Monona, and because of its amenities, its services, and its school district. That combination points to growth and not contraction in student enrollment for the foreseeable future. And looking up some Pew Research data points, nationally, we have millennials and Gen Z make up 40% of America's population. Gen Z is expected to actually grow to be bigger than millennials after we account for expected immigration. Millennials are now raising school-age children. Gen Z is close behind and growing rapidly. These are not small cohorts, and we need to start planning as though this enrollment will not stagnate. And if we do, that ignores the reality of who is and will be forming families in communities like Monona. Planning for stagnation or decline in enrollment overlooks this demographic reality. It assumes conditions will remain static despite the evidence that the generations most likely to drive future enrollment are already here and growing. Winnequa is already at overcapacity, and ignoring this reality is short-sighted and risks under-preparing for the students that will shape schools and communities in the years ahead. I think it's been said before, but once a school is sold, it's gone. This isn't about just about a building, putting people before buildings. This is about putting the community and the people that are connected to that building. It's not just about, as has been suggested, like putting people before buildings. Reacquiring property later, if and when enrollment rises, will be far more expensive and far more disruptive than maintaining what we currently have. This building gives us capacity, adaptability, it gives us options. At a time where demographic change and planning for the growth of Monona is happening. Maywood is an asset, and we are presently utilizing that building and structure. We'll continue to utilize it. We should protect it and not give it up. So with that, I urge you to reconsider the sale of Maywood and to plan for the community that already exists and the one that we are going to become. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Tish, we have a 9 that's blank, just so you know. All right, next up is Patrick Fessenbecken. Fessenbecken? Fessenbecker. Oh, it's an R.
It is.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Weirdly enough, it means fat baker in German.
I really like that. I apologize,
The
Patrick.
double S fades out of the double T.
Welcome.
And before I get started, I care a lot about names and making sure that I pronounce people's correctly. So is Dr. Friedrich an appropriate title? Frederick, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Okay, so I want to very briefly paraphrase the argument that I heard about Winneqa's population at the last school board meeting and then offer 2 observations about it. The argument, as I understood it, Dr. Frederick, is basically there is no future, regardless of what happens with the population of Monona, where it's going to make sense to do elementary education at Maywood. If the population stays the same, great. Winneqa's fine. If it grows a little bit, then we build an addition on to Winnequa. If it grows a lot, well, then the thing to do is not open a second elementary school at Maywood. It's instead to go ahead and build a proper elementary school. I hope that I hope that I've accurately paraphrased your view, and if I haven't, I hope that you'll correct me later on in the note. I want to make kind of two observations about it and then maybe 2 requests. So the observation, I was struck last time by the way it seemed to you that the district didn't have any responsibility for ensuring the success of a RAP care program. Your phrasing at the end of it was Maywood, let me get it exactly correctly, that Maywood would not be a home for our students. That it's great for Parks and Rec, but that it would not be a home for our. And I was struck by that. That was in contrast to the RAP care program at Cottage Grove School, which is, as it looks to me from just a guy in the community, as something run by school district staff in a school district facility. If we are indeed, to that extent, right, it seems as if the district recognizes itself as carrying responsibility for offering RAP care in Cottage Grove, but doesn't see itself, in your thinking, as having that responsibility in Monona. If we are one district, I would have thought that offering the same level of service in both communities would be necessary, and that maybe all of the students are ours, regardless of where they are. Okay, so first observation, then the request. At the end of the last meeting, Susan Manning asked that you're thinking maybe the superintendent's comment could be moved up closer to the public. If that was possible, I think that would be great. I really learned a lot sticking around last time, and I'm fully, I believe that you have expertise that is not clear, and that's not clear to me anyway, and that if there was some way of distributing it that wasn't conversationally at the end of a video, I think that would be really great. So consider that a request. And then a last request. I am at heart hopeful that this is going to lead to a better outcome for everybody. I am a yes in my backyard voter. I would love to think that these facilities have interesting and exciting futures in front of them. I have dreams that maybe in the bottom of district office there could be a coffee shop and a bookstore. There could be a park in my backyard. I really hope that this can all work out well. I'm a congenital optimist with a martyrdom complex. So I think this, all you have to do is kind of put this out there, right? Ask us to sacrifice for the greater good. And I think we will do it, right? The energy is there. I mean, right, you got $1,000 donations from people just finding out about it. And In Monona, we've started the process of organizing Ice Watch and Ice Out communities, and I have been blown away by the number of people who have come to me and said, yes, Patrick, send me out there with a whistle and a cell phone, and I'll do my part. What I would maybe ask for, though, and what I think maybe some of the frustration that we're getting here, is to recognize that you are asking us to sacrifice some things that matter. That these spaces, that people will be losing something, things that they care about. And if you ask us for that, we'll probably be there. But at least let's not pretend that it isn't a sacrifice. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. All right, our last public comment for the day is Lydia Bertram. Welcome.
Happy to be back again. I know the drill. Oh, I like that. Yes, please get me a punch card. Lydia Bertram, School Road, Cottage Grove. Hi, board members. I'm here today to speak once again on behalf of the financial stability of our district. I think the issue of district financial failure is perhaps more real to me than it is to many other parents in our district. As a board member for an organization that works with school districts across the state, I am watching firsthand as programming is cut down to the barest bones, referendums fail, and finally, districts close their doors. When it comes to Maywood and Nichols, there are still a lot of unanswered questions, such as how much they are worth and who would be willing to buy them. But once all the numbers are in, if selling them is the price of keeping our district open, maintaining district programming, and fairly compensating our school staff, that is saving our schools. I've been here. I've been paying attention. When the room files out after the community has shared their comments, I'm still here, listening to understand. I've attended the workshops. I've listened in committee meetings. I've met with multiple board members as well as the superintendent. And because I am informed, because I have much of the same information as yourselves, I did not speak out against the closing of Taylor Prairie School. This, despite the fact that my child will be in a crowded school next year with only 126 square feet per student, 30 square feet less than Winneqa's 156, a fact shared by many at the last meeting. Just an FYI that number was calculated based on this handout from Save Our Schools for the sake of continuity rather than on the district's projected enrollment data. In addition to the arguably crowded school, Taylor Prairie is quite literally my backyard. My property adjoins Taylor Prairie. But I've been here, I've listened, and I understood that without closing the school, other cuts would have to be made, so I said nothing. In fact, I spoke up for closing it. I know there are a lot of reasons being thrown around for why both Maywood and Nichols are necessary. I've responded to people ad nauseum on Facebook regurgitating the information from the meetings and the district website, and it's clear that people prefer their alternative facts. For those in the room for the comments, I encourage you to stay to the end and listen and seek to understand. Cottage Grove's RAP care has been a specific item of concern just mentioned by the last speaker and will be discussed again later tonight. If you want additional facts, consult board docs, review the district's long-range facilities page, or reach out directly to Kristen Solpasinski rather than relying on secondhand information shared on community pages. I know there are some loud voices out there asking you to save 2 school buildings. And if we choose not to sell, there are cuts that can be made. More staff, MG21, athletics, and other extracurriculars. But as we saw at the last meeting, these programs are vital. MG21 is a thriving program and a home for many students needing or wanting an alternative learning environment. Athletics and other activities drive attendance and good grades, as shown by last month's data. I know you want to keep these programs open, but you, like me, have been here for the meetings. You've watched the enrollment numbers. You've seen Kristen's spreadsheets of our finances. You know that somewhere cuts will have to be made. I and others who have attended school board meetings for the past 18 months understand our district's fiscal situation and accept the difficult financial choices that have already been made. And we know that there are still more to come. I don't want to send my kids to Sun Prairie, and I know that the people of Monona don't want to send theirs to MMSD. I implore you, as members of the board, to focus on the verified facts and make choices that prioritize retaining our staff, maintaining vibrant programming, and keeping our kids in Monona Grove schools. Thank you for your time and your service.
Thank you, Lydia. Thank you, everybody who came out for public comment today. I think I said this at the top of the meeting, but I'll reiterate it again. We really appreciate hearing from everybody. We appreciate the feedback, and at any time, public comment is kind of weird because it's one direction, but please reach out to us, meet us for coffee, come chat with us more. We're always happy to engage with you all. So thank you again for coming. All right, moving on to item N, action item 2026-2027 4K wrap care fees. I think, Kristen, is this your agenda?
Sure, I can take it.
Thank you.
2026-27, we are recommending 3 changes to wrap care fees. The registration fee increasing from $75 to $100. Extended care, meaning if your child stays until 5 o'clock, from $75 a week to $100 a week. And then PD days charged at $40 a day, up from $30. Just for your information, we do have some comparable data below that shows other providers, Monona Park and Rec, Cozy Kids, Kids Safari, and Creative Kids, just to give the board an idea of our fees versus what's out there in the community. And as you can see, what we're recommending is very comparable to what we see in the community.
Motion or questions?
Question, Kristen, or for Kristen?
Yeah.
Or did somebody else have their hand up?
I think she was going to move so we could discuss.
That's fine, go ahead.
I move approval of the 2026-27 4K wrap care as presented.
I'll second it.
Great. Further discussion. Philip.
Yeah, Kristen, I know it's in the attachment, but I just wanted to clarify that since the program has been in existence, the rates have been static. Is that correct? We have not.
There were increases last year.
Oh, last year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. It is a self-sustaining program. We had a bit of a profit in some recent years, but we have to consider replacement of equipment and those type of things.
Eric, did you have a question?
Oh, just a clarification that the Creative Kids, Kids Safari, Cozy Kids, Monroe Park, and Recs are all run by those individual entities for the wraparound care,
Right.
and the wrap care at Taylor Prairie is
District run.
district run. Okay, thank you.
Tanya.
We have engaged conversation with the Village of Cottage Grove for them to take it over as part of their Park and Rec. One of the things that has been an issue is their fiscal year runs different than ours, and so we've continued to kind of slide past each other. They have met with the Monona Park and Rec to look at their model and how they're doing that, so that's something that we would continue to like to pursue. It was opened at that point because there was some closures that happened here and limited opportunities, and wrap care for 4K is really important because 4K is hard because it's a very small part of the day, and so for working families that don't have that ability to have pick up and drop off and care, super important for it to be available at a good price in the communities. Not really business that most districts are in. Took that on for a while, but would really like to have a partner take that.
So is it fair to say, Tanya, just kind of to summarize what you said, that the preference of administration would be for both programs to be run by their respective Parks and Rec, Community Parks and Rec program?
Correct.
And we're just not there yet with Cottage Grove? Okay, thank you. Other questions? Yes.
I don't have a question, but for context, being what some of our public or community members have spoken about in regards to the wrap care. When we moved here, my oldest was in kindergarten, and that's when the 4K program had just started statewide. And so he missed that, but my younger son had been in 4K at Winnequa, and at the time there was nothing for wrap care at all. So a lot of the families ended up going to some of the private schools and sending their 4Kers to that option because they provided wrap care. So it's kind of a newer thing. And then the after-school care was provided by the Y. They would come and sit in the lunchroom and provide care that way. So it's kind of been a newer thing that the city has stepped in, or well, I guess newer since my kids have left. But so it's been a nice program. So it's also, I'm glad that until Cottage Grove maybe changes, I'm glad that we can help provide and help families out. And I'm glad Monona City has also provided that.
Other questions or thoughts? Yes, Eric.
No, just a comment, as someone who has had one child in 4K and has another one coming up with wraparound care. So I'm certainly familiar with the costs and how important it is. And as a teacher in the Madison School District, it's fairly rare for districts to offer full wraparound care or what you'd consider maybe full day 4K, and it's also not required by the state. But there have been some districts that are moving in that direction. So I would just say that this is always a discussion that we are having, and I think a concern that's on the table. But just in case some of the public didn't understand the process, like, why can't we just have full day 4K? Well, I personally would love full day 4K, but it's somewhat complex and not required by the state to do that. So I just want to make that comment.
Anything else on this item? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Can we do voice vote, or is there a call for roll call? Okay, voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Next up, discussion item 01, policy series first reading. There are a number of them in here today. So, Janice, are you summarizing for us today?
At least for some of them.
Okay, great.
Gonna let Tanya take attendance because there's a lot going on there. The first four, the 7544 use of social media, is a new policy with legal counsel recommendations, and then that and the next ones underneath it, like, all kind of work together. So, and 1213, 3213, and 4213 are just different sections of employee groups. So it's the same policy, but like one is for administration, one is for teachers, one is for support staff. And then where did it go? Oop, sorry, looking at a spreadsheet. And the social media one came from Neola, and it was new, and then the other ones are based on legal advice. So, like, Tanya, do you have additional?
Yeah, I think, as we think about how do families and kids and teachers and schools communicate with each other, really wanting to be very clear about the roles and responsibilities of any of our employees, whether it be administrators, support staff, teachers, about how that we're communicating. Currently, our policies say, like, you shouldn't use individual personal social media for those interactions, and this policy says you shall not. Yeah. And then really thinking about what are our district approved methods and also social media platforms. So really wanting to be very clear about that and just clean up that part of it. The other part is really looking at updating some of the concepts around boundaries. If you look at some of these policies, a lot of the boundaries are around physical boundaries. And I think as social media and technology has evolved, there's different types of boundaries. It's not necessarily, some things that happen aren't because we're in physical proximity. Some of it is those boundaries with social media. And so wanting to clarify those things and to make sure that our staff are making good choices and being protected, and also kids and families. And so really kind kind of like standard operating procedures about how do we interact in those spaces.
And the,
Oh, I'm sorry, I was gonna say, let's pause and do questions on this suite before we get into attendance.
yeah, I just had one more follow-up comment, which was then we also had a discussion about like how this could be, can and will be rolled out to staff. So, and then what avenues do staff have to communicate with students, and just making sure that everybody's clear on like, these are the platforms that we use and how does that all work? And making sure that it's communicated well.
Thank you, Janice. Questions about these policies? I have one. So, I mean, obviously the burden of understanding these policies and engaging and abiding by these policies is on the adult, which as well it should be. But we've also seen a lot in our neighboring districts that have come out in the news recently around what are the dynamics when you have, adults that are, either coming close to boundaries or pushing boundaries, or in many cases full on crossing boundaries. So what is our role in educating our youth and students around what the expectations they should hold for the adults that are in their environment, and how we empower our youth to say, whoa, this is uncomfortable, this is strange, I want to say something about it. Because the power dynamics get real weird there real quick.
Yeah. So, I think when we talk about protective factors, I go way back and it was like stranger danger, right? And then the research said like most people are not abused by strangers, right. It's loved ones, right? So teaching kids and families about those protective cycles and circles and trusted adults and those type of things. I think that social media and some of the electronic platforms have caused us to have to do the exact same thing with kids. So updating our media literacy and just that digital citizenship, right, to help kids understand some of the evolutions that happen. So the number of people that are online and really are predators but act as friends, right? And then it's another layer around people that are supposed to be trusted adults, whether they're parents or family friends or just name the group. And so really expanding those protective factors and teaching kids about those things and who are your safe people to go to. I think that the good things that we know is kids tell other kids, and really working with kids, like good friends don't keep those kind of secrets. Good friends get it to a trusted adult who can handle it appropriately. So made some strides, but the staff are working on some of those updates right now, especially thinking about 6th through 12th grade. I think we have more conversations that we have to have with upper elementary kids about child-created sexual abuse material, sexting, just all of it.
Yeah.
So.
And then I appreciate that, thank you. And then as a follow-up, to me, like there's a triangulation, right, between the adults in our spaces who we employ, where we have the expectations of engaging in these ways, right? We have youth understanding kind of what is okay and what is not okay, and how to navigate those spaces, as well as safe, supportive adults. And then to me, the other component of that stool then becomes family and family engagement. Last year we had digital literacy night. Like, what are we doing to help engage families, and not just secondary families, right? I think, myself as, parent of a 3rd grader and a 6th grader, I feel like every year it just like creeps on down in terms of who has access to what and those kinds of things. So kind of what's the family engagement strategy on this?
Yeah, the Cottage Grove Student and Family Organization partnered with several Cottage Grove entities this fall, and held a creating safe tech safe healthy families, right? And lots of really great information. That was our largest attendance opportunity. There was probably close to 200 people there. We did school safety in January, and we had 5 people at one night and like 8 at the other, right? And that's talking about, just not just schools, like physical safety and like intruder training and all that, but then also, helping people understand about some of the other safety factors. There's been some really, really heartbreaking situations of sextortion with 2 different teenagers in Wisconsin lately. And so helping families understand that, I think we're trying to strive that right balance of people aren't necessarily coming out to attend things. And so what's that push-pull of information where we can push information out to people, but also when they have an opportunity or time, like how do they pull it? Because coming to events doesn't seem to garner people here. So thinking about how we support families for that opportunity. I mean, we're not the only game in town. There's lots of places that people get information.
Right.
I'm not super interested in that as much as I am, are they getting really good information?
Is the
Is that
information
from their pediatricians,
Right.
from, families that have, mental health care providers, schools, your churches, your youth groups.
Right.
It's just how do we get good information in the hands of kids and families so that they're aware of, things that we don't want to think about happening, but that are, and how does technology weave into that in a different way?
Yeah, Philip.
Yeah, you've partially answered the question that I have, or the piece of this that I wanted to explore a little bit. But in the preamble of this policy, and I just want to clarify.
Anti-harassment policy.
I'm talking about 7554, sorry, use of social media.
Sorry. I just want to make sure I knew which one.
Yep. Janice, you said this is new, right? This is a new policy. In the preamble, it mentions the district's responsibility under federal law to educate students on safe and responsible use and things like that. And then there's a reference to another one of our existing policies. However, the other policy it references seems to be, the thrust of that policy seems to, at least for now, be much more about controls, right? Controls on device. And so I'm wondering if it would be worth exploring revisions to that other policy to try to better capture maybe our intent on the education piece, and how we're not just trying to control and block and, put, nanny monitors on devices and things like that, but how are we actually trying to educate the kids and make sure we codify that in our policies?
Yeah. Eric.
Yeah, I also, Philip, am curious, how are we educating our students regarding the policy and social media, and are we having information sessions? Are we teachers talking to students? What is the process that's happening right now?
So, all of our library media specialists do library lessons, and digital citizenship and digital literacy is all part of those lessons. So when you are the 5K, so kindergarten through 5th grade. 6th through 8th grade, the opportunity is through advisory periods. And a lot of times, we can do a better job of what's that curriculum of what do you get in 6th grade, what do you get in 7th grade, what do you get in 8th grade. We have found lately, a lot of it's been really reactive. Like, we're seeing data of this being a problem right now, so talking to kids and giving information to families about it. Our hope is to, by 8th grade, have them have that knowledge, so as they enter into high school, they move forward. So there's an opportunity there at the middle school for sure.
And it's being done in high school too?
High school, yeah, they have advisory periods and social, through SEL, and there's some things about literature, citizenship there, digital citizenship. It's not very robust.
I have a question for you, Elsa, and let me clarify that you absolutely do not have to answer this question if you don't feel comfortable. But I'm going to ask it. What is your experience with social media and the district informing you about certain policies and rules and regulations? And again, please feel like if you don't want to answer, just say, no, thank you, pass. That's fine.
So yeah, I'd love to give an account as a student, and I think that's always really helpful. I attended Winnequa School, so from kindergarten through 5th grade, I remember we would have guidance lessons where our guidance counselor would come into our classroom, and we would learn about being safe online, in person. I mean, we had all these songs like the 8 Never Nevers. You learn about all these things, and you come home and you tell your mom, you go, Mom, here's what I learned today about being safe, about being trusting. And so that's sort of the foundation that really gets built up in elementary school. I think middle school was definitely the most robust period where you learn about that because you have advisory sessions every single day. And so those lessons would sort of progress and we'd kind of learn about things as a class. Again, in middle school, it is hard to get that engagement from the student population, but I think still having those resources available with those trusted adults was really helpful. For a student looking for information, there's always a place you can find it. and recovering those lessons each grade as you progress throughout middle school, because your understanding and your use of social media and the online world changes as you grow. So having that continuously throughout the 3 grades in middle school was very helpful for me and my fellow students, my peers. And then in high school, we obviously don't do as much with it as we're more focused on future and career planning throughout our advisory lessons, but we still do touch on it from time to time. It's a very important topic to kind of go over. Does that answer your question okay?
Sure does. Thank you. I appreciate
Of course,
that.
yeah.
Great. Other questions about these? Thank you, Elsa. Other questions about these policies? Okay, great. And then I think the other major policy in this one for first read is attendance, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm going to let Tanya take that one because there's a lot going on.
So a couple of different things. Some of the changes in this are philosophical. I think as we look at chronic absenteeism, any child being gone for any reason over the course of time, and as you know, when you hit like 10% of the school year, right, that research says it has an impact. And so when we think about striving learners that aren't necessarily hitting benchmarks, and then you look at attendance, and there's often some potential correlation to those things, right? You have to be in school to learn. And we also have some really high achieving kids that have chronic absenteeism, and we think about it's really important to have that social fabric of all of the kids present, because that's what provides a really robust and learning environment. So really thinking about how do we encourage the importance of being there, and then how are we clearer about what are parents' opportunities for having their kids not be in attendance, and then what are exempt reasons for being gone, which is anything with a medical provider, those kind of things, and then what are unexcused. And then lastly, you'll see in there is working with the secondary level, having conversations about what is the difference between if you're truant and unexcused and you have homework to make up, as opposed to you've had, medical concern or something, and what that looks like. Right now, the way it is written, it just can linger on forever. And as the teachers have given feedback about, if a child misses a week of work and a month later we're still trying to get it, how are we, we can't close that loop, especially at the secondary level, if it's the end of the semester, now a new set of classes have started. And so really this giving teachers some ability to do some compacting, do some things, but then also give kids the time commensurate to that they've been gone to make up the work. So it's got a little more boundaries around it. And also teacher individuality based on situation for them to have some opportunities to work through that.
Questions? I have a couple. Which you won't be surprised about.
Sure won't.
I think there's a couple of things. One is I do appreciate the boundary pieces around truancy, habitual truancy, as you know, Tanya, but for folks that don't follow attendance policy that closely, we do treat excused absences and unexcused absences differently. We think about them differently. There's stigma around them, which as a result leads to different outcomes for students. So I think giving some boundaries around it and giving some bounded time, but still allowing the opportunity to do work, right, and make that up, I think is really important. So I was glad that that is added in. I am curious about our student and family engagement around this, particularly in our places where we know we have high rates of chronic absence. So thinking about secondary, I think that there is this, and I've heard this, right? I've heard it at work, I've heard it with families. There's this misnomer that if you're a high achieving individual, that somehow being absent doesn't matter. And what we know is there are a couple of things. Being absent, chronically absent matters regardless, right? You don't achieve as well, but it also impacts, to your point, Tanya, the fabric of the classroom. And we also know that when students are in classrooms that are not chronically absent the first semester, in classrooms where you have students who are chronically absent, it increases the probability that non-chronically absent students will be chronically absent the second semester. And so this idea of culture of attendance is a concept that I think that we need to think more deeply about, particularly in our community, where I do think we have kids that are missing for like vacations, or speaking for myself, because I have a hockey game in Appleton at 3 o'clock, right? And so you have to miss a partial day. So thinking about some of the other contexts that our community brings so that we can think about how do we support a culture of attendance, not just from like the policy perspective, but also so that students understand the importance of it and want to be there, and that families understand the importance of it as well. So I would love to hear a little bit, even if you don't have any ideas right now, but like how are we going to engage students and families on this topic?
So, about a year ago, we really started having conversations with families, making more phone calls, having more proactive outreach instead of like, here's the attendance letter, here's those kind of things, and having those conversations. And I think that has been beneficial. We had kind of stopped sending the attendance letters, and because COVID, attendance became different because the messaging and how we wanted families to move forward. And so it almost kind of became like, come to school, don't come to school. It's okay, right? When do you come, not? And really just asking families to be much more conscientious of scheduling vacations or when they've got things going on of those. I think the importance of being there, I think the idea of kids wanting to be at school is very important. And kids feeling like it matters when they're not there. And so that's a lot of work with staff to help make sure that they are sending those messages of we value you, you're important, and we're not the same when you're not here.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Janice.
Since we had our meeting, I have had a conversation with some high school parents who were confused that if a student missed like one of the periods in the morning, it counted as a half day, and if they missed a half day, it counted as a whole day. And like, that's confusing, and also it felt to them like, but they didn't miss a half of a day. They only missed for part of a day, and you know what I mean? So like that.
Some clarity around how many blocks you miss,
What is
which
a day of
becomes
attendance?
a day in attendance, yes.
Yeah, well, also it does seem weird that if you miss a half day, it counts as a full day. I don't understand that.
doesn't? I don't
Okay,
know.
so then there is definitely some like not clarity about what is going on.
Yeah, and the law talks about part or all of a day, and so it's the half day or the full day is where it lands. So, yeah, opportunity to clean that up.
Yeah, that probably more communication would be great.
Yeah. I'd also be curious, and we can talk about this offline, but I'd be curious about the types of correspondences we're sending to families, right? We know that the type of notification letter you get matters. Research is pretty clear. No, won't surprise anybody, right? If you get a nice letter, you're more likely to be like, oh, thank you, I'll do that. And if you get a nasty gram, then you get really mad. So I'd just be curious to see our collateral on that.
A year ago, we really started pushing out some proactive communication, like this is why it's important, and this is what, like, how can we help, and some of those kind of things, trying to switch that narrative as opposed to like nobody wants to hand slap. And every kid has that year where it's just a bad year, right? Or a family, like those things happen, and we want to work with families on that. It's not a shame game. It's just a how do we do better at this.
I just want to quickly echo the sentiments of Janice regarding the half-day absence policy. That is something that I have heard within the school from students and from parents. So I think some clarity on that would be really appreciated, just that quickly.
All right, any other questions about this policy? Great, and this was just discussion, so we will move on to information items. So these are committee updates, and we have been here quite a while, so as always, brevity is our friend. Starting with TLE, that's you, Rochelle.
All right, so I'm just gonna suggest if anybody is interested to check out on our last meeting, which feels like it was a long time ago, but it wasn't. Angie Fassel brought forth some of the data she collected with screen time.
Oh, great.
That was used in our elementary schools. And so she did put together a slide, presentation that can be found in the meeting notes. So it might be worth, if anybody's interested, to take a few minutes and have some time with it to kind of have a better idea of how much screen time is happening with our younger folks.
Thanks, Rochelle. And I'll note for the full board and for the community who may not know this, we have a meeting coming up with the American Academy of Pediatrics Center of Excellence of Social Media and Youth Mental Health. They put out some new guidelines not that long ago, including some things around school. And so we're going to be meeting with the AAP, and by we, I'll be there, Dr. Frederick will be there, Rob and Angie will be there. Rochelle is invited, I think is unable to attend. So we'll report back on that. But the idea is to think about kind of what is the latest best practices, like leaning into the experts at the AAP in terms of what's the best practice use around screen times in schools. And then what about that informs, obviously, operations and guidance, and then what, if any of that, would maybe need to inform policy. So more to come. That's coming up, what, 2 weeks? Next week? I don't know, sometime in February.
2 weeks.
We're all meeting. All right, speaking of policy, Janice, anything additional?
Not right now, no, but we have another meeting in a couple of weeks.
Great.
So.
Yes, Susan.
One of the questions I had, and unfortunately I missed the last policy meeting because I was at the state school board meeting. One of the things I think we should review is the legislative piece and the kind of so for in the policy, the committee policy, because right now Tanya is doing an absolutely incredible job, and I know they'll mention the legislative breakfast. On the legislative work that she's currently doing, she's meeting with legislators and she's going and doing that. And I think we might want to think about in any input from the board, particularly about the interrelationship of the legislative role, because right now the language in the policy
thank you, Will.
basically says, thank you, yeah, Will. Basically right now our policy talks about the role of the committee, and I think we need to maybe look, our role is to monitor and review legislative matters affecting the district as presented by the superintendent, and right now we're not agendizing any legislative issues into our policy committee. So I just wondered what.
Yeah. So did you want to say something?
Yeah, so you'll see some in February. Have just been gathering some of that information.
Oh, great. So we're going to start doing that.
Yeah, we'll talk about, do you want to bring a resolution forward to the board about voucher transparency? I think the other piece is around big conversations with the surplus at the state level and getting to subsufficient reimbursement for special education. So I have those two things on there for input, and then you can decide if you want to bring them here for formal resolutions. Great.
Good. Yep.
Yeah.
Just a question. Yep.
Great.
Yep.
Anything else from policy? Nope. You are up again for WASB Delegate Assembly. How did it go?
Yes,
in the
so
big room?
it was super fun. I really enjoyed being the representative at the Delegate Assembly. I enjoyed doing the voting on all of the different resolutions, and I just want to share one. The whole packet of things that were approved is in board docs, so if anybody wants to read them, please do. But I did want to talk about the emergency resolution, which is addressing the underfunded special education categorical aid reimbursement rates. So what happened is the biennial budget was passed for 2025 through 2027, named Act 15, and the state agreed to provide a special education categorical aid reimbursement rate of 42% for the 2025-26 school year. On November 15th, the DPI informed school districts that the sum certain appropriation in Act 15 for that aid would not be enough to meet the agreed rate, and therefore the reimbursement rate will be reduced to 35%. This is a much lower rate than what the state agreed to provide to school districts. And by the time school districts learned about the information, they'd already approved their 2025-26 budgets. So this was brought by one of the school districts, and they brought forth a resolution saying that the Wisconsin Association of School Boards supports legislation to provide the additional funding that is necessary to meet the estimated special education categorical aid reimbursement rate when an original sum certain appropriation has been determined not to meet the biennial budget's reimbursement rate. And this passed overwhelmingly. So, I just, in case people aren't aware, like the state government said it would do one thing and then was like, oh, wait, it's going to be less. Yeah. And so.
Janice, unless you would like to do it, I'm gonna ask Tanya to just define subcertain appropriation for the folks that don't follow budgetary wonkiness.
Yeah, do you got it?
No,
okay.
I don't.
Some certain means they put a certain amount of money there, and that's all that's in there.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's more claims than anticipated, everybody gets less. So there was a calculation that said the some certain amount was going to give everybody 42%. Well, it ended up being much more expensive claims. And so it should say some sufficient, so that you have, it doesn't matter how much, everybody puts it in, and then everybody gets that percentage back. So there's arguments right now about getting certain to sufficient changed.
So the difference between certain and sufficient is, one is, some certain is, this is the finite pot, and you get what you get. Some sufficient is, whatever we appropriated, whatever that percentage is, that's what you get, regardless of what we appropriated or estimated. So that's the difference between certain and sufficient.
And the way special education is funded right now, it's an unfunded mandate. We're required to provide it, and it is the absolute right work to do, but our reimbursement rates we're barely getting 35% coverage. And so.
Which is why we're always borrowing from Fund 10.
So we have to do these very large Fund 10 transfers into Fund 27 to backfill that money. Because we're not getting the state and federal aid at the rate in which it was originally promised. So 42% would be great, 35, not great.
Go ahead, Phil.
And I just want to call out that Kristen did have the foresight to budget conservatively on this number. It's just way worse than we thought it could possibly be. So she planned that the 42% just wouldn't get met, but the shortfall was even worse.
Yeah, I think we planned 36% because she is conservative, if not nothing.
Yeah, so just, hats off to Kristen for, having a crystal ball.
Was it 36,
38, I think.
I thought it was 38 she planned.
Yeah.
I think you're right, that's why. But either way, you're supposed to get 42.
Well, and it really felt like at the meeting, and I have no idea what other districts planned, but some districts potentially took them at their word that it would be 42%, and they're just hurting.
Yeah. So, I will say, and thank you, Tanya, for explaining it. I think it's important for folks to know, because these are, when we talk about, state and federal funding coming in and other funding sources that we have potential, right? Grants and those things. Like, these are things that we're talking about millions of dollars of difference in your operating funds. And then this happens every year to every school district. It's not unique to us, but our special education fund is never enough to cover our special education expenditure. So then we have to, and we're legally allowed to, and it makes sense, right? Borrow from our general operating fund in order to, because that fund has to be balanced by law, has to be balanced. So we're constantly borrowing from our general operating fund. So every dollar that the state legislature either promises us and then takes away, or the federal government promises and takes away, all then has to come from somewhere, and that comes all from general operating. So that's why I think it's wonky, it's hard to follow, but it's incredibly important, because at the end of the day, this is about money that doesn't go to the hands of kids, particularly kids who need it most, because someone made a calculation error, either intentionally or not. So thank you, Janice. Anything else you want to share from Delegate Assembly?
No, other than it was really fun and I liked it a lot.
And you're going to do it again?
I will totally do that again.
All right. Moving on to Personnel Committee, we did not meet in February, but it is getting to the time of year where we'll start working on staff contracts as well as the handbook. So we expect to get busier in the next couple of months here and hopefully be able to bring a proposal to the board fairly soon. Monona Grove Education Foundation. Susan.
The Monona Grove Education Foundation met at 4 o'clock this afternoon, and both Tanya and I had to leave before it was finished. So I will report out again in March the rest of that meeting. But they did do several things. Again, they're reviewing all their committees. They had Lorene Gage has resigned, and they are looking for recruiting new members on the foundation. So if anybody's interested in working with the foundation, they should get in touch with Carrie Robbins, because I know she'd love to hear from people. Basically, they also discussed, again, the recruitment process and that kind of thing. We did get a report of the Finance Committee. The CARES campaign effectively, once they got their assets with their expenditures, have $35,000 to use in that area, and they were very pleased with that. The other request they're getting from the high school for a grant is we originally at one point in time had certified nursing assistants training provided in the schools, and then that moved back to Madison College, and they're working at bringing a portion of that back, and they're looking to the foundation for grant support on that. And that's when I had to leave. So I'll bring the rest of that to you. Do you want the stuff about the school board meeting?
Yeah. in a second.
Okay.
Does anyone have any questions about MGEF? Susan, you're up to talk. Oh,
Can I
sorry.
just add? Yeah, so at the high school, they had the CNA lab on site, and then Madison College asked them to come there, and now Madison College is like, we'd better to come to you. So we would like to get that back up and going, and in addition to that, add a phlebotomy lab to it for blood draws. So at La Follette does not have one. They are now going to Sauk City.
Oh, wow.
To use their lab.
So it'll be a co-op.
So we could, if we get this done, it would be a value add to the region, not just to us.
Great.
So it's a super fun thing to think about,
Yeah,
a
that's
project
really
to
great.
think about for kids that are interested in the medical field.
Great
and-
program.
Yeah.
And
So-
they're working with the UW
Great.
hospital and making that happen. In fact, Greg has been working with many programs, which is interfacing students with that, with the UW hospital program.
Now you may talk about the state
Okay.
education convention,
So
Susan.
again, I went to the Wisconsin School Board Association state meeting. It was 4 days of really excellent programs. I went to programs from like 8 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock at night. And then everybody wanted to talk about the programs. Effectively, and I also went to a program that Elmbrook did, which was excellent. They talked a lot about the board role, using data, strategic teacher compensation, building structure with data, insights into successful facility projects. That was interesting. And I have like 10 pages of notes for each of these workshops. The board's role in financial oversight, academic accountability and progress monitoring, legislative update, how to host a legislative day, and that was actually presented by one of the legislators that was at the breakfast that the district did and Stoughton, and then new developments in school law, and how to do a monthly financial scorecard for your district, and probably another 15, but the major things were finance, board role, legislation, and data analysis.
All right, moving on to the superintendent's report. Tanya.
Just want to give an update. The Human Growth and Development Advisory Committee has commenced. It's very exciting. Thank you to Stephanie for being the board member and healthcare professional on that. We have a list of the other people, so thank you to the employees, and then also the parents, and then the student reps that are on there. We did think it was important to have a community person be the committee chair, so Britt Leach has taken that job. We are hopeful that this group, they met February 4th, they'll meet March 4th and April 8th, then we'll bring their recommendations to the Teaching, Learning, and Equity Committee, and then into the full boardroom. And so really looking at scope and sequence, and then eventually looking at materials, updating materials in which we would use. So thank you for everybody for that work.
Together a really good group of people. Both communities are equally represented.
Yeah.
Different areas. I think it's very exciting to see who actually was on the committee. So I think it's going to be a good discussion.
Just a quick question. Can you remind me the trigger for forming this committee?
Why we started? Because it
hasn't been reviewed since 2011.
2011.
And
Okay, that's what
we
I
are
was-
probably not in compliance
Yeah,
just
that's what
because
I
we
was-
haven't updated with a lot of the new legislative things. So
Got it. That's what I wanted to clarify. Thank you.
going forward, it's going to be reviewed on a more regular basis.
Got it.
Yeah, and state law says who you have to have on that committee and different things and the proportion, so it's not overwhelmed by staff members or.
But it's open to the public, so anybody can come
Absolutely.
and sit. Yep.
Yes. So very excited that we're getting that off the ground. As was mentioned earlier, that Susan mentioned, we had a legislative breakfast on February 5th. We held it at Winnequa. John and Deanne and the teachers and the kids did like a great job. And so thank you for all the board members that were present.
I would love to say it was awesome.
It was great.
It was so cool. It was so neat to meet with our legislators and like actually get to talk to them. So thank you for organizing that because it was really wonderful.
Absolutely. Yeah, so real positive feedback.
Well, and I was at a meeting that evening with Melissa, and she just talked about it a lot. And not only that, but she was very interactive about it because they also do that at Stoughton. And so she had lots of thoughts and ideas about, things that we did that were really, really positive, the classroom and that kind of work, being in the classrooms. And then she also talked about things that she said, it'd be nice to have the names of people that are going to be there beforehand. So, just little simple things. So clearly, Sheila Stubbs, they just really, and Joan, enjoyed being there very much.
It was a great event. Special thank you to our nutrition staff who put together a delicious breakfast, as always.
Yeah.
I was very excited to see them.
They could have gave the whole presentation on the homemade granola and the locally sourced yogurt.
It was delicious.
And right?
It was like the best thing I ate all day.
Yeah, exactly.
So no, it was a really wonderful event, and I appreciate the opportunity to take our legislators into classrooms too, so that they can actually see some of the really great work that's happening and the impact of the legislation that they passed, and then how that gets passed down to staff and students in ways that are positive and maybe not so positive.
So we tried to focus on the science of reading and Act 20 and some of those things, which is why we chose to start there. We plan to do something in the fall and looking at probably math at the middle school. Would be those. So because of the way the boundaries change and stuff, we've got, Sheila's newer to us, we're newer to her. Some people that cover Cottage Grove don't cover Monona, but we're all in one district. And so just making sure that we get into schools in both communities and are able to build those relationships. So we will continue to do that. But yes, thank you for coming. It was very good. And we learned a lot about some things we could do around transparency around vouchers. So we'll be talking with the village and the city and the town to talk about those. Other exciting things, we have SROs in both of our schools. Officer Luke Wench is been working for 8 years to try to get secured what would be considered a facility dog. A facility dog, it would be in collaboration with Custom Canines, yes, and the police department, and that dog would pretty much travel with Luke in his duties. And so,
Turner and Hooch.
I know. That's amazing. We had the public safety meeting last week on Thursday night, and Recon came with his family that he's with right now. He's doing some advanced training at Stoughton High School with their SRO to kind of get that last bit of training about how do you navigate in a really busy, I mean, high schools are busy, there's a lot going on. So it's called a facility dog. They are trained as service dogs. The difference being they learn lots of different commands and can act on those based on the command for the person that's there in front of them. So whether that be anxiety, hypoglycemia, like all the different things that these dogs are trained in to be able to do that. And so super excited for that.
I was gonna say, I'm really disappointed there's not a photo of Recon
Yeah, where's
in
the
here.
photo of Recon?
Like extremely disappointed that you
Well-
got to meet this dog and there's not a photo. But secondarily, we just got, in Dane County Emergency Management, just got a similar dog, custom canine service dog, lives with one of the people, and goes to fire stations and stuff, and is actually trained to sense cortisol levels, and can sense when you're stressed and will come over and just love on you. And I think I left my meeting yesterday covered in dog hair, but it was just the presence that these dogs can have is remarkable. So.
Yeah, so lots of different things, ways
Very
they can.
exciting.
Yeah, so it is not totally approved yet. It will go to the Monona City Council as its next stop after public safety. And I think they will do the first, second read, so we're a couple weeks out. And then we've been working on a memorandum of understanding between Custom Canines, the police station, and the district about some of those things.
Do they need any, I mean, would it be a benefit of any support from the district coming, saying that, like, this, have you already done that? Yeah, okay.
Unless anybody's gonna tell me something different, oops.
Okay.
But yes, I mean,
Okay.
yes, you know, I can connect you with the people if you want to, or you could go to the meeting. Do you wanna do another meeting?
And then you'll let us know when the dog starts so we can stop in and say hi, right?
Well, the dog's gotta come to the meeting.
Yeah, our plan was we would have Luke and Recon come to a meeting and kind of do a meet and greet and things. We did, so this is all like, we're working on it, haven't really said much because wasn't sure where it was gonna go. After the public safety meeting, the newspaper was there and we were like, oh, this better go because the newspaper's here.
Yeah.
So they were taking pictures.
I think this is great. Very excited. Really practical question.
Ask me about allergies?
Well, so, I know it's not therapy dog. We do have a therapy animal policy.
Yep.
And so I just want to know, do we need to update that policy or is there anything we need to do to be inclusive with this program?
Nope, we are good. There's lots of, our insurance said it has to be, like the insurance thing is it has to be trained as a therapy dog. So a therapy dog has like this level of training and this dog has like
Service
this
dog.
level of
Technically,
training.
it's a service
Yeah,
dog.
so
Won't
technically
go
a
anywhere.
service dog.
Yeah.
There's some weird stuff with how you quantify a service dog because we think of it as it serves
Has to
a
do a task.
person and a task for that person, which is why they call it a facility dog.
Yep.
But policy-wise, we're good.
Okay, great.
And talked to a couple other districts around the state that also have them about what that looked like, and then also, you know, looked through our Renewal policies and stuff. So I think we're in good shape.
Great.
So
Perfect.
that's very exciting.
Yes.
Last thing that's a little hot off the press that I don't have on here, we had originally had talked about with the city of Monona and them doing their planning commission. And getting some demographic updated information, if we could just kind of like jump on that and get it, because Vanderwall is doing some work for them.
Yeah.
So we did ask, you know, because one of the things that's a little bit of a disadvantage is, you know, we have some real strong rubrics from Cottage Grove that tell us for every multi-family unit, you get 0.08 elementary kids. Right? So when they talk about like we're going to put in 100 units multifamily unit home, like we can kind of do that, like okay, like hopefully we get 8 kids, great, bring them tomorrow. right? We don't have that necessarily, and that's been specifically calculated for Monona. Don't really want to pay for it. So the quote was pretty high for that, but did have a conversation with Applied, Applied Population Lab, which I know has done work for the district in the past. So did reach back out to them and asked them, kind of told them what we were looking for and asked them to put together what their work would look like and what they would need.
The Monona City Ad Hoc Planning Commission meets tomorrow. As I shared previously, I'm on that committee as our school board rep, so I can keep you all posted on what that conversation is too, and any.
Yeah.
Because Vanderwall's been there; they were at the last one too.
Yeah, and at Edge, they talked a little bit about it for the Monona East Side Business Association, and it was all about housing affordability and flat growth, right, of kids and things like that. So.
Anything else for Tanya? I know that we are closing in on a 5-hour meeting here, so I don't need to keep us too much longer. I do want to ask a question though, because we have gotten this both in public comment and I've gotten some feedback from the community too about where the superintendent report lives in the agenda. So prior to Tanya being on as superintendent, Stephanie, you were, prior to you being around, the superintendent's report, it was never on top, but it was a little higher. So do we have a preference as a board in terms of where we want to put the superintendent's report? I mean, it's trade-offs, right? Where you put discussion versus action versus superintendent. But while we're here, if anyone has a point of view, I would love to hear it. And if you're too tired to have a point of view, that's fine. You can email me your point of view at a future date as well. But I think it's something worth considering. Yes, Rochelle?
Okay. I think, especially with the some of the information that's going to be coming in over the next few meetings, the way that it was organized today with having a specific information at the administrative report at the top was probably pretty helpful for a lot of folks. So I think that was effective for communicating to people. Now, that's different than the superintendent report, but if we're going to roll them in together, that might be a good place to land for now.
Any other initial thoughts? Philip?
Yeah, I think bringing it up in the agenda is a good idea. I also think it'd be interesting to break out, depending on the density of the report, if the report has sort of 3 distinct things, we have, Q superintendent report, so there's a place for 1, 2, 3, right, or ABC. I think that would be helpful too, just from a, verbosity perspective. So when we're searching agendas, when people are skimming agendas to see what's going to get talked about, it's not, the nugget of information you're looking for isn't, in the middle of a long document. So I think it'd be helpful, and I think that's not unique to the superintendent report. Really, any informational report, if it starts to get really dense, we should consider breaking that apart into individual, information out type items, just so they're easy to find. But yeah, I think we should front load the meeting with anything that's particularly relevant to the community.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Yes, Janice.
I think that Tanya does a really nice job of keeping them short and concise. So like if we moved it up in the meeting, I don't think it would significantly impact like how, the flow of the meeting. Right. Do you know what I mean? Yep. It's not like it's something that lasts for 20 minutes. So like I think it could be, but you never have done that. Right. So I mean, kudos to you for being like on it. So
maybe she does it because it's always last.
Maybe. I'm just saying. Right. What?
Everyone's done.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So it could move up, and I don't think it would be detrimental.
I appreciate that, Janice. Stephanie, Susan, or Eric?
Yeah, I think I like the idea of moving up even just a little bit. I think that you bring some really interesting, great points. I do agree at the end, everybody is kind of done. You're like, it's 10 o'clock at night. Like some of the topics you bring up are really fun to engage with and ask questions and like really chat about. So maybe moving a little earlier.
Susan?
I agree. I think one of the things, some of the feedback we got after the last meeting was Tanya covered a lot of things in her report that were, many of which were relevant to things the group that had come to the public session would have liked to have heard about. And similarly, it got late and they had all left by that time.
Yeah. Okay.
Although I have to tell you, Will is starting to set up a way that you can go into board meetings
Yep.
under
he's done-
agendas,
yeah,
which will be.
He's doing a great job with that, and Katie's doing a great job, I think,
You
of
can go and
time-stamping them when
watch
she
that
sends out her
part.
messages.
Yeah.
Eric, do you have a point of view?
I don't care.
Okay.
If people want to move it up, that's fine.
Great. Okay. Yes.
One more comment. I just want to make sure that we're careful, that if it does start moving up in the agenda, that we don't start couching discussions in it.
Right.
So I want to make sure that if it's something that we really intend to have the board discuss, that we keep that in discussion and treat the superintendent's for it predominantly. Not that we can't ask a question, but I just don't want to sort of slip into a mode where it becomes like almost like a catch-all for discussion items.
Yeah, I think that's a
We
fair.
got to be really careful about that.
Yeah,
so.
I think that's a fair call out, Philip.
Yep.
Okay, great. All right, so when I do agenda planning for next month with Tanya, we'll work through kind of where that needs to be, and maybe it'll bounce a little bit depending on what you've got, so. All right, thank you, everyone. I know this has been a very long meeting, so I would love a motion.
Well,
to adjourn.
meeting dates.
Oh, I'm sorry, future meeting dates, thank you.
There's an issue, well, not an issue, but just so everybody knows, on March 10th, there's a choir concert. I don't know if you realize that or not. So,
These Tuesday meetings have been,
yeah, I don't know, I could probably make it work, but my daughter is going to be there, so I wouldn't mind seeing her, but.
okay.
And also, I'm going to be out of town. Can I Zoom in for that?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
we'll be able to get technology for sure. Because we are back at district office because it's an odd month. It's
Yeah.
easier to zoom into district office.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else with future meeting dates? Okay, now I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make the motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Second.
Great, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion adjourned at 10:10. Thank you, everybody, this was a